Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you at your morning with us right here on Good Morning Kenya. I am Jane Wambui, and as rightfully mentioned, today is Wednesday. We will be focusing on women at the forefront, and today we'll have the pleasure of having one Christine Kibet, who is a biomedical engineer, joining us in studio to just help us understand how her journey has been getting to where she is today. Once again, as we always do it every Wednesday, all about women, supporting women, building women, and of course by bringing to you women that are doing fantastic things in society. All that will be coming up in not too long. Doreen.
Good morning to you, and again we appreciate you for making time. This morning on the roads we look at the 9.8 kilometer stretch. That is a road section between Dagoretti Corner all the way up to Karen. On February this year, Kura had mentioned that it was going to take about 4 months for that road to be complete. As of then, it was about 83%, but that hasn't quite happened yet because it's still some bit under construction. So this morning, even as we look at the traffic flow, I'll be telling you why the project has stalled a bit, given it's the last section when it comes to the expansion, or better still, dueling of Ngong Road. Many thanks for making time. I'm Doreen Arange.
Good morning. 13th, that not Friday the 13th. If you are a consumer of films and movies, if you like, whenever you mention the 13th, you'll remember Jason, Halloween and such. But this is Monday the 13th of October 2021. You're just in time for Good Morning Kenya, where we keep you informed on what has made headlines in the last 24 hours, as well as traffic updates. And being a Wednesday, we're going to be talking and focusing on women. As I say, you know, if you educate a woman, you educate a whole community. So we'll be talking about women at the forefront, as well as matters politics. Talking about politics, Raila yesterday, when he met the youth, he said, win or lose, I will accept. At the same time, there are plans by a section of MPs to clip the deputy president's wings, so to speak. And this comes at a time when, you know, they say that the head of state should have the power to hire and fire a deputy president to avert a situation that we find ourselves in, and that is the current standoff between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto. All that will be coming up in not too long as we sample those stories that have been making headlines in the last 24 hours, including just trying to elaborate why that maritime border dispute between Somalia and Kenya is very important to Kenya. So to keep it right here, good morning once again. I'm Regina Manyara. You can find me on Twitter at Ray Manyara, and our traffic marshal is available on Twitter too at Doreen Arange. Jane Wambui at Jane Wambui, and Victor Law at Victor Law. You're in good hands. It is Wednesday midweek, and you're watching Good Morning Kenya. Now we start off on that issue of the Kenya-Somali maritime border dispute, where now the International Court of Justice has noted that there is no agreed maritime boundary between the Federal Republic of Somalia and the Republic of Kenya. Now Kenya, which claims the entire area of the eastern coast, said last week that it would not recognize the jurisdiction of the Hague-based court.
In a ruling delivered by Chief Judge Joan Donager, the UN top court ruled that there was no agreed maritime boundary and drew a new border close to the one claimed by Somalia, allowing Kenya to keep part of the 100,000 square kilometer area.
For these reasons, the court, 1, unanimously finds that there is no agreed maritime boundary between the Federal Republic of Somalia and the Republic of Kenya that follows the parallel of latitude described in paragraph 35 above. 2, unanimously decides that the starting point of the single maritime boundary delimiting the respective maritime areas between the Federal Republic of Somalia and the Republic of Kenya is the intersection of the straight line extending from the final permanent boundary beacon, PB29, at right angles to the general direction of the coast with the low water line.
Somalia dragged Kenya to the ICJ in the year 2014 over the disputed patch of sea. Kenya's maritime area is approximately 255,000 kilometers, which was determined through parallel of latitudes in 1979. Somalia recognized Kenya's claim to the EEZ agreement for 35 years before heading to the Hague Court, citing failed talks to resolve the matter.
Sisi kama wavuvi wa kutoka maeneo ya Lamu ndio wavuvi wa pekee ambao tunatumia hizo sehemu ambazo kwamba wao wanazipigania, na tukasema ya kwamba ingekuwa bora wao waweze kutuhusisha sisi kama wavuvi ili tuweze kujua hata sisi hatima yetu itakuwa namna gani.
Tutavua kwa sababu kuna pahali kama ito Shakani, kuna pahali Kiunga, alafu watu wengi kutoka Pate Island wanaenda hizo sehemu kwenda kuvua kama tunaita ago.
Kenya has already warned that they will not cede even an inch of the territory and vowed it will not recognize the outcome of the case.
The maritime boundary between the parties having been determined, the court expects that each party will fully respect the sovereign rights and jurisdiction of the other in accordance with international law.
Well, we'll be keeping tabs on that development. Remember, talking about matters of justice as well as diplomacy. Somalia and Kenya. Kenya has been a great supporter of, democracy and peace in Somalia, to a point that we have our KDF soldiers still domiciled or within Somalia. And this has caused a push and pull there, with a conversation around then why do we still have our people, men and women out there in Somalia, if at all they've decided that's the way, that's the direction they are taking. And as far as, democracy, the elections, now this maritime border dispute. Now, to just put your mind at ease, maybe you're wondering why is this disputed section of this, actually it is 255 kilometers, 255,000 kilometers. That's the area that Kenya is claiming, or rather there's a dispute on. It is determined through the parallel latitudes of 1979. So when you go to Google, because Google is your friend, check the map of 1979, because there's been alterations over the last few years. Now, as it is, the area that is being claimed by Somalia is rich ground for oil exploration, and Kenya fears that if we relinquish our claim to this territorial waters, then we'll be locked out of this lucrative gas and oil and gas exploration site. Remember, Kenya has been making strides when it comes to oil and gas exploration. So we'll be keeping tabs on that. This is quite an issue there. As you see, President has not given his official statement, but we remember that Kenya came out and said that it's always going to be, protecting its borders from both external as well as internal forces there. Crossing over to matters of, the voter registration process. Now, the National Assembly Justice and Legal Affairs Committee has taken issue with the manner in which the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is conducting the ongoing voter registration exercise. The committee claims there is no equity and fairness, as some populated wards have been supplied with limited equipment for registration.
Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission was on Tuesday put to task by the National Assembly Justice and Legal Affairs Committee to explain how it arrived at the decision to distribute 3 BVR kits to every ward. The committee wants IEBC to review the decision, considering that some wards are populous and it may not attain the desired results of enlisting 6 million new voters before the 2022 general election.
There are some wards where not all the BVR kits, the 3 are working. So they are less, they're not even 3, so they're less than 3. One of the examples is Makinan Road ward in Kwale County. Also, there have been changes of dates.
The committee also seeking answers on how the commission will address voter transfers, instigated by certain politicians for their own selfish gains, the commission vowing that it will only honor voter transfer requests for those who have been registered for at least 6 months.
These are regulations passed by Parliament. So then what we need to come out of this room with is how else can a registration officer ensure that one has been a resident before they approve that transfer?
The committee was not, however, amused with the commission constantly shifting blame to other entities, calling on the chairman Wafula Chebukati, who was present, to put his house in order.
IEBC amendment bill is a story which we don't know. There is no such a bill in Parliament. And I want to be on record and on media. This bill does not exist, and I want to speak to, I'm stating also as a member of House Business Committee, we don't have such a bill.
Chebukati instead throwing the ball back to Parliament, claiming some bills to guide the 2022 general election are still pending, yet time was running.
As we speak now, there's no law guiding boundary limitation. The law which is there is spent. It was spent with the first review in 2012. Now, after we came up with that draft with the previous jailer committee, that bill is in Parliament, having been forwarded some times back.
Stop shifting blame to other, firms and such on the process, and do it in an open and transparent manner. Conversations between members of Parliament and the IEBC, including the chair, Wafula Chebukati. Now, Deputy President William Ruto has called on Parliament to allocate enough resources to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to enable it conclusively conduct the voter registration exercise. Ruto said IEBC should leave no stone unturned in ensuring the targeted 6 million voters are registered. Now, speaking after meeting a section of Mount Kenya and Ukambani aspirants under the United Democratic Alliance Party at his current office, Ruto said a majority of those targeted in the voter registration drive are young people who deserve an opportunity to define their destiny.
Wale wenzetu ambao wako bunge, please, we are asking the Parliament of Kenya to appropriate resources to IEBC to give them the capacity to enlist the 6 million voters by making sure that they have the right infrastructure and financial ability to reach every voter that is not enlisted as a voter. There are people who are following others blindly. I don't want nobody to follow me blindly. I want us to agree that we are going this way, and everybody must reasonably understand that we are going this way for this reason. I have told you, number one, you have made the right decision to participate in the politics of your country. We must build our agenda on matters that are dear to the people of Kenya.
To matters security, the government has directed all non-residents of designated trouble areas of Laikipia County to vacate with immediate effect in an effort aimed at enhancing security in the region. The government is also deploying special forces and equipment to deal with what it terms as hardcore bandits who have taken advantage of the drought situation in the neighboring areas to commit criminal incursions.
Despite the enhanced presence of security teams, criminals are still challenging government to resolve to restore normalcy in Laikipia County. In a statement, the government has directed all non-residents in Laikipia to vacate designated areas with immediate effect in an effort aimed at enhancing security in the region. The government also says special forces and equipment will be deployed to help beef up security. A special command team will also monitor and continuously review the operation to rid Laikipia of criminal elements. The latest move coming only a day after 3 people were killed by bandits said to have been on a revenge mission after their attempts to steal livestock was thwarted by security personnel.
Legislators from the northeastern region are blaming the government for what they term as a slow response to the drought situation in the region. Garissa Township Member of Parliament Aiden Duale, who Tuesday moved an adjournment motion in the National Assembly to discuss the crisis and solutions, noted that the region is in a sorry state and the situation is likely to get worse in the next few months. Little is being done to help affected families that have moved forward towards the Somalia-Ethiopia border. President Uhuru Kenyatta declared drought a national disaster. 10 counties are affected, 5 being from the northeastern region.
Because government response is not there, or it is very slow. We want to ask government to talk to its friends and partners and create a humanitarian crisis appeal.
Mr. Speaker, this is a sad state. This is a very sorry state, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if nothing is not done in the next couple of days, we will not be talking about the people in the north. You see so many people, presidential candidates, are encouraging people to go and register. How does a hungry man go and register?
It is really very, very sad situation that we are facing in the north. Mr. Speaker, I have been to the constituency, and what I have seen, I have never seen such a kind of situation in my constituency, Ijara, Mr. Speaker. People have migrated as far as Wajir, Marsabit, and everywhere you'll find the animals in my constituency.
Because the government is to advise the pastoralists on the weather so that they can plan to do either destocking and restocking. But there were no advice by the Ministry of Agriculture. So, Mr. Speaker, I request the government to compensate the pastoralists for the
In case you missed, our special report series, The Bane of Drought, it is available on our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke, as well as our YouTube channel at KBC Channel 1. Just look at what is happening in those 10 counties where drought is hard hitting. Remember now, drought is a national disaster. If you want to just know what the government is doing in partnership with the private sector to elevate the lives of those people who are in those drought-stricken areas, well, KBC Channel 1 YouTube channel is a place to get that particular special report. Back to school. Schools across the country have resumed learning for the second term under the COVID-19 crash program, with parents decrying the high costs involved. On Tuesday, learners thronged various bus terminals back as public service vehicles operators hiked fares to cash in on the high demand.
Tuesday morning, learners across the country made their way back to school. This just after a one-week break under the crash program that was adopted following the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Transport operators making a kill from the rush.
Fare imepanda sana. Leo tunalipa 1000 na tunalipaga 500. Tumesinywa kidogo.
Ile shida yako ni shida magari. Sababu ukiangalia kwa stage hakuna watu wako wengi, lakini magari yaziko.
According to the operators, the rise in bus fare was inevitable owing to the demand at the time.
Na demand ikienda juu mpaka bei nayo ipande. Inaendanga tu hivyo kwa biashara. Kama saa hii sasa tumeongeza karibu 100%, from 500 tuna charge 1000.
Many learners, however, failed to reach school on time. A cross-section of parents expressing frustrations on the cost implication of the crash program.
It's an odd hour, an odd time in the month. You can see it is the 15th, about the 11th there. People haven't even got their advance. The end month is so far away. Parents are expected to go and clear the fee balances. So those are the challenges that are there.
Kusema la kweli hatujajipanga, ni kulazimisha tu ile mambo mtoto umpeleke, arudishwe, aje akae, na bado kuna areas ya tamu iliyopita bado hatujalipa. Shule zikifungwa unasema acha tukae tungojee vile tutakavyofanya. Wachanga huko shule zishafunguliwa.
Ni muda kidogo sana, na wale watoto wanataka kukula, wanataka kukunywa, nyumba inataka kulipwa. Kwa hiyo tungependelea serikali tuangalilie mahali pale.
Challenge imekuwa kwamba fees imepanda na tena break imekuwa kidogo sana, such that we were not able to kupata pesa ambazo zilikuwa zilipe fees. Na kwa sababu hiyo tunawarudisha na madeni. We hope hawatarejeshwa nyumbani tena.
I have not had any challenges to report to the media, but I am comfortable with the administration of the school. And for the school fees, we have just paid as it was requested on the fee structure that we were given for the year. For the second term, we have paid it the way it is requested to be.
Learners will be in school until 23rd December 2021 when schools close for the second term break.
All I can say, from a parent to another, well, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. There are children who need to do everything that we can to ensure that they get education. That's the only thing you can assure that your child gets, that is going to better their future. But life is hard. Let's be very honest. It is. It is, with inflationary pressures there, as well as the short terms, actually 4 terms in a year. COVID disruptions. Crossing over to matters politics, ODM leader Raila has promised to have the youth allocated at least 4 cabinet slots if he is elected president in 2022. Raila, who was speaking during a meeting with a group of youth from Mount Kenya region at the University of Nairobi, said time had come for Kenya to invest in the youth through a affirmative plan. Now, the opposition leader reiterated his pledge of 6,000 shillings a month for the jobless Kenyans once he ascends to power.
During a public lecture organized by the youth from the Mount Kenya region, focus was on how the youth that form a majority of the country's population can be empowered.
The youth voice is important in their decision-making processes, because I was being reminded that Barack Obama mentioned that you can't play football with 11 players only. You need 22. And the youth of this country, Jacom, are part of that 22 team. You can't play it with 11, and we need to be on the table.
If we are not on the table, we are on the menu. And you know what happens when you're on the menu? You are eaten dry, my friend. So we don't want to be eaten dry. What we want is to be on the table, because if the president is meeting and in that cabinet there are at least 4 or 5 young people, the mentorship will be on another level.
ODM leader Raila Odinga pledging job creation, tax holiday, as well as creating a stand-alone ministry for the youth if elected president in the next year's general election.
No society can grow if half of the population are not working and dependent on the other half. And these are part of the population that is productive.
Raila noted that if the youth are empowered, there will be a source of wealth creation, further stating that this was part of the BBI agenda.
Strongly that if we bring that spirit that brought independence in this country, here in this country, we can be able to lift this country from where it is to where the founding fathers wanted it to be.
The ODM leader promising to have the youth in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as young people form the bulk of labor export by the country.
That when we get to power, we know that it will take us time to reach a stage where everybody has got an income, something active in which they have incomes. But we said, and before we get there, we don't want to see any Kenyan starving.
Leaders who attended the forum rooting for a Raila presidency, saying it meant well for this nation.
The hope of a Mama Mboga waking up very early in the morning, looking for school fee for his or her daughter. The hope of a boda rider. And I believe that that hope will be given by none other than Raila Amolo Odinga.
The GDP of Philippines is out of labor migration. We do not have the natural resources. We don't have the petroleum. We do not have much to sell to the world, but we have the capacity of Kenya.
Bei ya mafuta lazima ishuke katika serikali yako, hii tunaita gava ya baba, kwa sababu hata hao wakulima wanatumia hata hiyo mafuta kwa matrakta yao wakati wanaenda kulima.
Tunasondeka, tunasondeka. Are you ready? Are you ready?
My take home in all that speech is, it is also mind-boggling, and I'd want you to ask yourself as an electorate, why are the youth now very important? Yet for the last 9 years or so, we have been taking a back seat. Then, do you fall under the category of youth? What constitutes youth? Because I saw a number of people there who I would not consider as youth in terms of age. Maybe you'll help me understand that. Remember, you can get us on Twitter at KBC Channel 1 News. Further on, my take home, and this is on a very light note. If you're not seated at the table, you are likely to be on the menu. And as that gentleman spoke, if you're on the menu, you know what happens to staff on the menu. You're going to be served to people seated at the table. And he used a term, dry. So please, get a seat at the table. And most often, people will never stand up at the seat at the table for you. If you cannot sit at the table, take the table away. Then all of you are standing, right? Anyway, the Anglican Church of Kenya has called for the strengthening of judicial institutions to ensure timely and prompt delivery of justice. Archbishop Reverend Jackson Ole Sepid, who spoke during a peace symposium in Kisumu, faulted the institutions for being the weak link in the country's pursuit of peace and tranquility as the next year's general elections beckon.
During a peace symposium that brought together stakeholders including the Anglican Church of Kenya, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, among others, to chart a path to sustainable peace ahead of next year's election, the church challenged judicial institutions to step up capacity to deliver in their mandates. Archbishop Reverend Jackson Ole Sepid said failure by judicial institutions to address historical injustices only threatens peaceful coexistence in the country.
Good governance also ensures that justice is served to all citizens irrespective of their class, race, gender, religion, or age in a timely manner. For justice delayed is justice denied.
Sepid also called on the government to ensure equitable governance to eliminate the feeling of marginalization among certain communities.
We want to see and challenge the national managers of natural resources to ensure that every part of this country is developed and a bigger cake is baked that can be shareable by all of us. Because when we share equally, we will not fight over it.
He urged Kenyans to shun leaders who preach hatred and instead partake in initiatives that promote peaceful coexistence.
We specifically picked that phrase, constructive engagement, deliberately. Constructive engagement is opposed to lecturing to someone or calling out or firefighting. Constructive engagement draws us to dialogue, to reason together, to commune around a table and understand issues, to listen to one another, to discover the depth of our humanity and how we are called to relate together.
On his part, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission Chair, Reverend Samuel Kobia, urged the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to be firm and transparent in its endeavors to create trust among stakeholders.
It is because of the lack of trust of IEBC that the elections results were disputed, because they didn't trust that what was being declared was actually the truth.
We must design an electoral system in our nation such that we really live up to the tenets of democracy, which was not just a process, political process for its sake, but for a certain outcome. An outcome that convinces people that those they put in power are by the will of the people, demonstrated by the results of the election, properly run by competent bodies, where, as we celebrate the victory by the majority, those who lose, or the minority, accept the results as legitimate.
On that note, we take a quick breather. We'll be right back with what has been making headlines in matters as far as matters business and sports is concerned. Do not go away. We'll be right back.
kubadilisha makubaliano yangu mimi na wewe wakati wewe ndio uliyevunja ahadi ambayo ulikuwa umeweka.
Eti ametoleka hadi na tukio wawili. Sijui ana yapi. Lazima kuwe kuna kitu basi.
Mafuta nini hapa?
Kumbe kuna watoto. Wanani
hilo ndilo lilokuleta hapa?
Anti Pili wajuaje ametumwa na Kate aje atuweke sisi kwenye mtego ndo adili na sisi.
2-1 defeat at home to North Macedonia. Now Abreu sends it forward here, and now it's with Thomas Müller, who rolls it into Kai Havertz, and Germany have the lead. Now it's with
Good morning, the 13th of October 2021, and our viewers have been watching us either from their television sets or even online. We are live on various platforms, including Facebook, and one of our viewers there, Joseph, he says, yeah, for sure, let's sit on the table to avoid being part of the menu and eaten dry. I want to equate that dry to dry fry. Right? So the youth have to sit at the table, because at the table is where decisions are made. Policy frameworks are made at the table. And if we're not included in the drafting of these policies, then we'll always just be, gimmicks and watching as well as hearing this rhetoric, oh, the youth are leaders of tomorrow. To what point? When do we get to tomorrow, if not today? Right? When do we get to tomorrow if not today? I have a theorem in life. No one is going to give you an opportunity if you do not claim it. Even the good book says, you have to have faith. But even if you do not work on that faith, if you do not put or get your hands dirty to get to where you want to be, it will never happen. You cannot always be on your knees, but you're not doing anything about it. You want to have a full stomach, but are you ready to work for it? You want to have a better future, but are you ready to work for it? How much hard work and investment are you willing to put to change your current situation? Remember, no one is ever going to give you a seat at the table. You have to take it for yourself. And if you can, take away the table. Take away the table. Matters business. Only certified or horticultural exports will be allowed to access the international markets. The Kenya Bureau of Standards says it is in the process of acquiring new testing kits to enforce global exports testing standards. Kenya is targeting to increase horticultural exports to China, the European Union, and the United States that have strict phytosanitary standards.
Despite economic and logistical downturns caused by COVID-19, horticultural export earned Kenya 151 billion shillings in the year 2020. Flowers earned the country 108 billion shillings, fruits 18 billion shillings, while vegetables earned 24 billion shillings. Kenya plans to increase its export base to 300 billion shillings by the year 2025 through the improvement of testing standards. The Kenya Bureau of Standards say it will ban all non-certified horticultural products from the export markets.
As you are aware that the country is actually looking forward to, boosting the production of avocados because there's a big market out there. If they are not meeting the quality requirements, then we cannot be able to export.
KBC says it plans to scale up testing of horticultural consignments destined for the European market to ensure compliance to the bloc's phytosanitary standards.
Barriers to trade are made up often of technical barriers and quality and safety standards. So in order to be able to export, certain standards need to be met both by the producers but need to be certified to be met, and that's where KBC come in.
KBC is urging farmers to adhere to the minimum residue labels EU regulations, especially during the planting stage, to help conform with international food safety standards across the whole production value chain.
The primary production of food is key for food safety, and these are the raw materials that will be processed to other processed food that will enter into the global market.
To help upscale testing standards, KBC has acquired new testing technology from the European Union. The equipment is worth over 500 million shillings, procured through the Market Access Program.
We want to look at more trade, both domestic, regional and international, so that we can move out more export products, create more jobs.
Kenya and the United States have signed a private sector agreement that seeks to expand trade and investments between the two countries. President Kenyatta witnessed the agreement signed between the Kenya Private Sector Alliance and the Corporate Council on Africa, which provides a framework for Kenyan and American businesses, especially small and medium enterprises, to partner through information sharing, training, logistics, and financing.
The Kenya Private Sector Alliance signed the deal with Corporate Council on Africa, which is the largest umbrella body of American companies operating in Africa. Speaking at the signing ceremony in New York on the first day of his two-day official visit to the U.S., the president said the government-backed pact was part of efforts to support the growth of Kenyan SME sector as a key enabler of wealth and employment creation. President Kenyatta noted that both Kenyan and U.S. economies are largely driven by SMEs, saying that the agreement would help accelerate Kenya's economic recovery efforts from the ravages of the COVID-19 pandemic. The president challenged the American government to be a reliable and predictable trading partner for the initiative to succeed.
A good number of SMEs who either are already partnering or working in Kenya, and you will form the basis of what I believe will be a prosperous future for our two countries, but also an opportunity to create investment where it matters. And investment matters when it changes lives. SMEs change lives.
On her part, the CEO of CCA, Raila, commended President Kenyatta for creating a conducive business environment for local and foreign investments to thrive by championing progressive policies and setting up the enabling infrastructure.
The U.S.-Kenya SME Trade Initiative is a vision of CCA and KEPSA, and the concept for this initiative came from a desire that Carol and I both have to take concrete steps to scale up U.S.-Kenya trade, recognizing that SMEs are a driving force.
KEPSA CEO Carol Kariuki said her organization's singular focus was to ensure Kenyan SMEs tap into and benefit from the expansive and lucrative American market by leveraging on the networks and expertise provided by its Trade and Investment Pact with CCA.
Remember, further details are available on our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke. We delve into the sporting arena where 18 Kenyan athletes who will feature in the 8th edition of the Sunland Cape Town Marathon were yesterday flagged off ahead of the race set to be held this Sunday. Last year's edition was suspended after the disruption by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Daniel Muteti, who finished in the second position in the 2019 edition, will be seeking to show a splendid performance alongside Edul Kiptanui, Jonathan Kipchirchir and Kenneth Korir, among others.
I've been doing my training in different places, and up to now it marks 4 months. Normally what it takes to prepare for a marathon, and I feel like I am prepared to compete on coming Sunday.
Life is a marathon. In other words, it's continuous. It's a long journey. Marathon is 42 kilometers. Life is for your entire life. Some people take 2 weeks. I've seen the oldest person alive in Kenya, 123 years. So life is a marathon.
Other elite athletes will feature in this year's edition include, among others, Stella Chepkosgei, Esther Masharia, Telagat Elizabeth and Lydia Naliaka.
Substitute Ramadan Sobin netted a 72nd minute goal and helped Egypt seal a comfortable 3-0 win over Libya in a World Cup qualifying match that was played last evening in Libya. Now the Pharaohs top Group F with 10 points, while Libya sits second on 6 points. Elsewhere, Cameroon claimed a 1-0 win over Mozambique, while Germany became the first team to join the host Qatar in the 2022 World Cup qualifier with a comfortable 4-0 victory against North Macedonia.
To North Macedonia. Now Brew sends it forward here, and now it's with Thomas Muller, who rolls it into Kai Havertz, and Germany have the lead. Now it's with Timo Werner with a great chance for number 2. And Werner, ball bouncing off Wirtz, and Werner with his second goal in the space of a couple of minutes. 3-0 Germany. Adeyemi now. Nicely done, collected by Jamal Musiala.
To the penalty area, punch clear, and there's a goal. 1-0 to Cameroon. From
Indeed, you can get further details, as I mentioned there, on matters business, sports, as well as what is happening in the political scene. All are available on our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke. We appreciate everybody who's made time to actually be with us this morning. Remember, we appreciate your feedback. So can anyone Imbu, thank you very much for being tuned, as well as Joseph and Tom Mwema from Nairobi area. We wind up with ITH, as we refer it to here. That is the news broadcast every morning. And we take you to the roads. Remember, this is back to school week, and from hiking fairs and such, there's been a lot of activities on our major roads. But I'm not Traffic Marshal A1. Traffic Marshal A1 is on the other side of the studio. So over to you, Doreen.
Well, clearly that is also happening. There's a lot happening on the roads, and that's obviously because of the back to school. That is actually supposed to take place this entire week. But also this morning, we are just trying to focus on the progress of phase 3 of construction of Ngongo. That is from the areas of Dagoretti Corner all the way up till Karen. The Kenyan Urban Roads Authorities had mentioned that was on February. They had mentioned that this road was supposed to take a period of 4 months to be complete. That is phase 3 there. So it meant that around June thereabout, supposed to be complete. As of that time, it was about 83% complete in terms of construction. So the remaining parts were just to put in place the motorized transport system, as well as the 5 footbridges that had been designated around various areas of this particular section. This phase 3 is inclusive of what we call the dualing of Ngong Road, which actually has taken place from phase 1 and phase 2. That is all the way from the Kenya National Library up until Karen. That is phase 1, from Kenya National Library to Prestige Plaza. Phase 2, from Prestige Plaza to Dagoretti. Then phase 3, from Dagoretti to Karen. However, that hasn't been the case yet in terms of completion of construction because of some challenges here and there. If you're someone that uses Ngong Road, then you can clearly note that sometimes the traders will encroach in some of these places which they're still trying to construct. That is the areas, what we call the unmotorized transport system areas, the areas put in place for motorists as well as pedestrians. Just clearly from this image, you can see at the farthest end, that is where we have those 2 particular areas, one for motorists as well as one for pedestrians, what we call the pedestrian walkways as well as cyclist lanes. So that was one challenge. The other one is they had to relocate water pipes as well as electric poles, which only meant they had to engage the services of Nairobi Water Sewerage Company as well as Kenya Power, and that has taken a bit of some time. So this is why this phase 3 is not yet complete as per the time frame in which it was given, but is still coming along well. So much as phase 1 and 2 is already complete, opened up to the public, shaped how Ngong Road is looking like, there's still the footbridges which had been designated at various areas, one of them being at Kenyatta National Hospital. There's one supposed to be at Coptic Hospital. So these are some of the areas in which they had put in place the footbridges to be installed. That also hasn't quite happened. But even as much as they're trying to expand Ngong Road, they're also trying to put in place, or better still, demarcate some areas whereby bus rapid transit system is also going to take shape. So perhaps in the next link-up segment, we'll look at the traffic flow on this particular section, try to see how this construction process, the remaining part rather, is still trying to affect the traffic flow along this area. Also try to see if at all we might need to look at any alternative routes. But so far, those are the latest updates when it comes to the construction of phase 3 of Ngong Road and why the project has stalled a bit, much as the fact that it's as it now, it stands at 83% complete in terms of construction.
All right, from the roads, we now get started with the second part of this show. This is In the Headlines, part 2, where we get to have a look at what the papers have for us today. Remember, we still use the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. Our official station handle is at KBC Channel 1. Our individual handles ever remain to be at Victor Olo, at Arena Range, at Raymond Nyara, and at Jade Wamboi. Let me run you through the front page of the Daily Nation. As you can see from the caption there, the main read, not an inch, Kenya rejects C verdict. This is in regards to the ICJ ruling that was made yesterday, where the International Court upheld Somalia's when it comes to the maritime border dispute that we have been seeing. They sided with Somalia, and this is something that, even prior to this judgment, the president had said that we will not be surrendering even an inch of the country. And of course, given that Kenya did pull out of the ICJ, what next for us as a country? And also looking at this particular ruling and judgment that was given, and also looking at the border row, will it continue, or what avenues will be sought to just bring this conflict to an end? Coming to the other stories that have been featured here, there's an interesting piece here concerning hit squads, and it has emerged that rogue police are the top of the list when it comes to contract killers, and that story has been covered in great detail here on page 8 of this particular daily, and it is From a report that was done that was dubbed Targeted Killings in Eastern and Southern Africa, it is a global study that was done just looking at the targeted killings that have been witnessed over the past number of years, and it has emerged that corrupt law enforcers, hardcore criminals are reportedly the most dangerous assassins in Kenya. And we also saw the National Police Service spokesman, comment in regards to this report and dismissed it, saying it is erroneous and misleading because it does not bring out data to support the claims. We'll be giving you more details of that particular piece in a bit. And finally, Raila allies cry foul over new voters, with MPs accusing the Electoral Commission of bias, saying that there are few polling stations that have been allocated in ODM leaders' stronghold areas, looking at this mass registration process that is currently ongoing. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the front page of the Daily Nation for you. We'll be getting to the details in a bit. Victor.
Absolutely. All right, and on the front page of the Star, Rise of Poker King Justin Muturi, the would-be pilot who was suspended from high school, believes he can bring order. All right, JB talks about his life journey there. He's also gunning for that support to be the next president come next year. Rise of Poker King Justin Muturi. You can take a look at that story that is fleshed out for you on the front page of the Star newspaper. Crisis rocks Jubilee Party as nearly 70 employees sacked in radical purge. I will give you more details on that. And 20 million shillings court award for girl who lost hands in electrocution. This is a story again. Uhuru urges leaders to embrace diversity in his New York speech. So the story of the Jubilee purge says that Tuju says later by acting executive director, a miscommunication, a crisis has rocked President Uhuru Kenyatta's Jubilee after the party moved to sack nearly 70 employees, with directors and senior managers among the casualties. There is no speculation. There is speculation that Jubilee Secretary General Rafael Tuju was kept in the dark about the purge, triggering confusion. The affected staffers have threatened to sue the party if Tuju and Uhuru fail to act swiftly to reverse the decision that they termed a plot to forcefully take over the party. Okay, Matters Health, MOH, banks on outreach to attain Mashujaa Day vaccination target. The government is banking on community mobilization at the lowest levels and political goodwill to attain the Mashujaa Day vaccination target of 5.8 million. So far, slightly above 4.2 million people have been jabbed countrywide, with the government now targeting 1.6 million in the next 1 week. That is there for you. So, inside plan by state to reduce public universities' debt. The Ministry of Education is engaging public universities management to narrow down their expenditure in a quest to reduce their indebtedness. In a report tabled by the Departmental Committee on Education and Research, the ministry recommended restructuring and resizing universities. This includes stopping duplicated courses and rationalizing the number of administrative posts and units. That is on Matters Education. And that story of a lady who was electrocuted when she was just 15 years old, and she has been awarded 20 million shillings for losing her arms in the incident. Court dismisses Kenya Power appeal, says that girl deserves fund for prosthetic limbs. After 4-year wait, a 19-year-old girl whose hands were amputated after electrocution by Kenya Power Lines can now be fitted with 20 million shillings prosthetic arms. She received the good news on October 8th after the Court of Appeal declined to interfere with the award of 20 million made by the lower court. So she was collecting fire, according to the story, according to the court files, she was collecting firewood for her mother when she got electrocuted. She was 15 years old at that time. Now, while she was gathering firewood, she came with contact with the live electric wires while lying exposed on the ground. She suffered severe injuries to her arms, her hands, and part of the arms were amputated. So her mother filed the case at the High Court in Meru. Justice Alfred Mabea awarded the minor 20 billion shillings. But the court even says that the 20 billion shillings, might not bring the girl back to her original state before the incident. So 20 billion shillings was awarded to her. All right, President Uhuru Kenyatta is in the New York, but there's some good news here. And there was a dispatch yesterday from the White House where the statement by White House Press Secretary General, that is Jen Psaki, on the bilateral meeting between President Joseph Biden Jr. and President Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya. And this on Thursday, 14th, President Joseph R. Biden Jr. will host President Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya at the White House. The leaders will discuss the strong U.S.-Kenyan bilateral relationship and the need to bring transparency and accountability to domestic and international financial systems. They will also discuss efforts to defend democracy and human rights, advance peace and security, accelerate economic growth, and tackle climate change. The meeting will build on the leaders' phone call in February and on President Biden's commitment to the U.S. partnership with Africa based on principles of mutual respect and equality. So President Kenyatta will be at the White House tomorrow. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Take it on at the right time.
Honorable Musalia Mudavadi.
The Honorable Mutahi Kagwe.
Chief Justice Martha Karambuko.
This is KBC, the voice of Kenya.
Asking the right questions.
I don't know how it made you feel as speaker who is presiding over a house where members can be compromised with 10,000 shillings.
We keep our guests comfortable. A mission to ensure our audience gets a complete story.
For a few hours or so, I thought this is it. My end has come.
If really we want an end of this pandemic, we must fight.
Our goal, to tell it as it is for the benefit of our viewer.
And I'm sure we will have good discussions.
All right.
That will make probably your viewers understand KDF better.
With 21 radio outlets.
During a live interview on KBC TV, Chief of Defense Forces General Robert Kiboshi.
Jaji mkuu kwa mara ya kwanza katika mahojiano yake ya kipekee na runinga ya KBC Channel 1.
And 2 TV stations covering over 90% of the entire country. The message always gets home. KBC, the home of on-air TV interviews.
Umefuata nini saizi na wajua Sara hayuko?
Nataka mami wewe unijue kama mimi ni Yusuf kwako.
Wafuata nini tena hapa?
Don't you ever touch me again.
Asa kuna nini?
Ulikuwa unaonyesha pale nje. Kuna msichana nimemwona naye pale nje. Mjamzito hata yuaza leo jioni.
This is my property. Registered property under my name. No, what's your problem?
The Amazons. Explain to me why Vicente was so deeply in debt. If you refuse to tell me now, then the one I will need to ask about it is Victoriano.
He told me that if I prove to him that I love Connie, he'll think about it.
Go and keep that girl that you were kissing and just forget about me.
I don't understand why you ended up getting divorced. What happened there?
But don't give my daughter any trouble.
Deborah, what's that woman doing here?
She came back. Mommy came back home.
Welcome back to the program. This is still Good Morning Kenya. We continue unpacking for you how our dailies are looking like. And on the front page of the People's Daily, we obviously have that story concerning the Kenya-Somalia maritime row and how the ICJ ruled in favor of Somalia, with the article well highlighting how the court divided those the disputed areas. But also the Kenyan government, that is the state, accused the judges of proceeding with the case despite a 2009 agreement between the two countries on how to resolve the row amicably. So what next for Kenya? How will this perhaps ruling affect even Kenya, Somalia in terms of relation and and things such as that? That article also continues to well highlight that. Coming to matters elections, we obviously know that the IBC is still out there to continue registering voters. And yesterday, before the National Assembly, that is Professor Ali Abdi Gulie, who mentioned that they are not going to extend it any further. It's supposed to end on November 3rd. That is a 30-day process, or better yet, exercise. And he attributed this to the fact that there's no enough money or finances for extending that voter registration. This was after lawmakers just perhaps asked the commission to see whether or not they're going to extend it any further. So unless they provide more money, they're not going to extend it. So that only means that Kenyans perhaps need to go out there and get registered as voters. Speaking of that, and perhaps the 2022 general elections, right now, as it stands, there may be a possibility that unofficial names could be allowed on the ballot. For instance, something like how you know your political leaders with the nicknames that you know them for. That is how their names might just be appearing on the ballot come 2022 if this bill is amended. That is the Election Act number 24 of 2011. So just giving some example, perhaps the Deputy President William Ruto, his name appearing as Hustler, the ODM leader Raila Odinga, his name appearing as Baba, as well as various other leaders if that bill gets to be amended. And also yesterday we talked about that man who impersonated as a magistrate for a total period of 3 years. So the latest is that now the court detains the fake magistrate, that is Victor Ngeno, for 2 weeks. That is what is currently happening in regards to that particular story there. We also have on matters education, the back to school. Again, this is just in respect and in effect to the fact that yes, this is the school reopening week after that 1 week break, and parents have been complaining of the fees as well as the hike in bus fares as they return children back to school. Also, a spot check done by PD showed that people are not adhering to COVID-19 protocols amidst the fact that children are going back to school there. So there's that also on matters education, as well as to the counties. Nyandarua to close 1,800 liquor outlets, and this is just to... Actually, since the year 2017, that particular county has had no alcohol regulations and licensing, leading to rapid rise in the number of unlicensed outlets. So that is also one of the reasons that is informing the closure of at least 1,800 liquor outlets or liquor stores in that particular county. Also in Nandi County, a man has hacked lava to death in that particular county. When you get the details, I'll be telling you why that has happened, as well as many other more. Ray.
It seems the scribes were, reading from the same script this morning, being the 13th of October 2021, and I'd want to delve deeper into the details. I'd want to pick it up from what you mentioned there, Doreen, that now politicians are picking catchy nicknames to woo voters. We will see so much ahead of the general election 2022. Just to give you but a few sneak peek, Murang'a Governor Mwangi wa Iria, official name is actually Francis Mainge Mwangi. While Kiambu Senator Kimani Wamatangi, is Paul Kimani. Former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waitito, you all know him and, refer to him as Baba Yao. Mawakahere, Kieni MP Kanini Kega. A majority even think that, these are their real names. They changed their names. They actually have changed their names. And Kanini Kega changed his name to Kanini Kega from James Mathenge Simon. While Murang'a Women Rep Sabina Wanjiru Chege, who is also a former employee of Kenya Broadcasting Corporation some years back, changed her name to Sabina Maito Wanjiru Chege. Habari ndio hiyo. But remember, this deed poll is a declaration detailing one's intention to change their name, and it must entail a notification from the referee. The registrar may, however, reject a proposal if the change promotes criminal activities. Sawa. Or it is impossible to pronounce the names, includes numbers, symbols, promotes racial or religious hatred, promotes the use of drugs, is vulgar, or includes at least one former and one username. You know, the Registrar of Documents has only 2 offices in the country currently. That is in Nairobi and Mombasa County. So now we are out here to fancy names and nicknames to woo voters. We will see so much. The question is, have they delivered on what they promised?
Or it's just names?
Before they took office? Or is it this time where they remember, oh, the roads in my constituency are in a deplorable state. Oh, the sewerage is terrible. Oh, security, you know, last minute rush. You as a constituent, you need to remember that you are the employer of the leaders, and it is time that we practice servant leadership. You lead by setting the pace. Get your hands dirty. Not every last 6 months towards the general election, but all the time. That's why you're paid by the taxpayers, and that's why you've been chosen as a leader. And sometimes I hear people saying, and even quoting the good book, that leaders are appointed by God. Then I ask myself, really? Really? Are they? They're the ones who cast the ballot. And unfortunately, if we look at the history, the Kenyan history as it is, we vote by tribal lines. Nepotism comes into play. Tribalism comes into play. We have never brought our leaders to book when it comes to service delivery. And being the 21st century and the age of internet and the youth, from one youth to another, I think we need to exercise our voice and vote. I'm just wondering here, Jane, Doreen, and Victor, if the youth make up the majority of Kenya's population, so to speak, men and women, if we decided to field a candidate of our choice as the youth, not what is already available, and we decided to vote, would be unstoppable. But have we? Are our minds as free? Are they? Exercising your vote is your democratic right, remember. And voter apathy, even as IBC talks about voter apathy, what you need to know, you not voting basically means you have ceded your power. You let the person who has woken up at 5 a.m. make that decision for you. It means you are not taking part at the table. You're not taking part. You're not seated at the table. You're not even with the table. You need to exercise your democratic right. As they say, democracy is a situation where the majority will have their way, but the minority will always have their say. Jane, did I preach there? I tried not to quote the Bible.
And it reminds me of, I don't remember whose post this was, but they likened the lack of voting that so many people have, made a pattern and a habit over the years. Those who just decide, yes, I have I'm a registered voter, I'm of age, I can go cast my ballot, but I refuse to do so. That was likened to drug abuse, because one definition of drug abuse is when you have the medicine, but you take today, kesho unaruka, then unakumbuka the next day, oh, I need to take my medicine. That is also drug abuse and misuse. And there's somebody who likened that habit to those of us that fail to vote, and yet you have the right, you have been given the time, the venue, everything, but you still choose not to. But anywho, let me bring you to the Daily Nation. And I know this story concerning the maritime conflict the maritime conflict has been featured on almost all the dailies. And here, in as much as the main read is in regards to the judgment that was given, there is an interesting piece that just looks at the ripple effect that will come after this. Was it ruling or judgment? Judgment, yes. The judgment that was made by the ICJ. Now, tough traces lay ahead for Uhuru Kenyatta when it comes to Kenyan troops in Somalia. This is just but one of the ripple effects that we'll be seeing unfold in time. And following that unfavorable judgment on the maritime dispute with Somalia, the KDF has now been left in a catch-22 situation. Why is this? Looking at the fact that KDF has been part of a 12,000 strong AMISOM force that has been helping Somalia National Security Forces to fight Al-Shabaab, part of what they're supposed to do is also protect the territory of Somalia. And given this new judgment that favored Somalia's equidistance formula, they will now have to go and guard the territory that has been declared to be within the Somalia bounds. And these are KDF forces that will be required to go and guard these particular boundaries. And now, on the other hand, is the decision that President Kenyatta and his generals have to make to decide whether to continue assisting the security in a quote-unquote an enemy state rather, and at the same time deploy our own defending forces to go guard the same territory, which of course our president said we are not ceding even an inch of Kenya's territory to anyone. So this essentially puts KDF against KDF, and this is not something that I'm sure our president wants to see play out. So now he is in a catch-22 situation. We are waiting to see what he will have to say in regards to this. Of course, the decision will come from him as well as his generals to decide whether to pull the troops out or to continue with the operations in the war-torn nation under the Africa Union Mission for Somalia, popularly known as AMISOM. And I don't know what you guys feel about this. Looking at this maritime border dispute, it started way back in 2014, and that is when Somalia said that it needs to go diagonally and not horizontally, while Kenya says it needs to go along the latitude lines. And now yesterday the ICJ did say that Somalia's equidistance formula is what will be followed. Of course, not favorable judgment for Kenya. But now looking at this particular situation with our KDF forces there, I don't know if they've indicated the number. Okay, yeah, there's a 12,000 strong, at least 12,000 KDF member. Yes, 12,000 KDF are there to help when it comes to the peacekeeping in that particular nation, and they'll also be expected to secure the 160,000 square kilometer territory in the Indian Ocean, which is believed to contain vast oil and gas deposits. Let me start with you, Vic. Looking at this situation and the decision that the president has to make, KDF against KDF, should he choose to not pull out the KDF forces that are in Somalia?
Well, I think in his response to the media yesterday at the UN Security Council in New York, he said that he will respond accordingly after going through the judgment, because that judgment just came after during that council meeting in New York. But then, looking at the situation, the Operation Linda Inchi began before 2014, during the Kibaki era. So it began, it all started, you remember how it all started, that the two tourists who were abducted sometimes in coast, and then it forced the government now to take the troops in Somalia. And then it's not Kenyan troops alone who are in Somalia. It's an AMISOM. We have got, some from Uganda, from Rwanda, and what have you. So it's a very tight rope the president is going to walk. Now he's going to distinguish between the operation in Somalia and the maritime border dispute between the two nations. When you distinguish the two, then you realize that all of them have weight. KDF will have to stay in Somalia until something is done, or until AMISOM ratifies their exit. But then that will take some time because their mission in Somalia is way bigger than what, you know, people would actually think about. The maritime border dispute, again, there's a cartoon here trying to make fun of President Kenyatta, saying that, talking to Farmajo, that, gentlemen, do you know what we do to court orders? It's a cartoon actually here, whether that is the case or not, but then look at it this way. The UN court in The Hague made that resolution yesterday. So the two countries will have to sit down to decide on how they are going to go about it. Some people would say that it was not a big loss for Kenya per se, but then the president will have to walk a very delicate step with his counterpart Farmajo, just to ensure that, you know, that relationship between Somalia and Kenya is not eroded. That is my take.
But you know, there are also those that are saying that this particular judgment does not affect the country in any way due to the pulling out. And then also, the president did say they will deploy military power to defend the country, or rather to fight off any form of aggression that will be, you know, if in any case that will arise. Doreen and Ray.
I mean, just looking about, picking from what Vika said about that delicate step, it reminds me of that time in 2009 when the two countries had sort of decided to sort this issue amicably. However, that didn't quite happen. And just coming to my thinking, what if that could have just been extended, that to sort out this issue amicably? Because when you look at Kenya and Somalia, clearly there's a lot of relations, there's a lot of ties, and looking at how the ICJ ruled in favor of Somalia, what honestly does this mean for Kenya? Much as there's those that are saying that Kenya has not lost a lot, but clearly, what does it say when it comes to those relations between Kenya and Somalia? Just question of wait and see.
Well, in my take, when I see this push and pull between Somalia and Kenya, I actually see workings of another player or players pushing this maritime dispute, you know. And I know that there are companies and firms that, you know, are sponsored by various countries who'd prefer to either trade with Somalia, you know, when it comes to oil and gas exploration and such. So there's a lot that is not being said. There's a lot that is not being said, even at the courts and such. And remember, even before this particular verdict was given, Kenya had already said that it is actually unfair because it was never given a fair hearing to present its documents and such. And the question about AMISOM, KDF, security and such, we have walked such a long journey with Somalia, And I'm also wondering to our Kenyan authorities, so to speak, since we're talking about our territorial waters and land, how come we've never given so much interest to Migingo Island? Remember, these have been waters and an island that has been in dispute for years actually, to a point that persons who reside at the Migingo Island, and Victor, you can weigh in on this, you know, they argue that the security apparatus manning the particular island are from neighboring Uganda. And the current president of Uganda, that is Yoweri Museveni, has been quoted saying, I don't know if it is the water that belongs to Kenya, and I don't know what belongs to what, but now I'm just thinking, if we go back to those pre-colonial and also post-colonial demarcations in as far as Kenya's, you know, territorial waters and land is concerned, where does Migingo lie squarely? Because the disputed 255,000 kilometer area there is based on the 1979, you know, drawing of map such as it is, diagonal latitude lines and such. But the real thing, it's not about the boundaries. It's about that disputed area has already been earmarked or identified as an oil and gas rich area. So there are other players in mind. There are other players at play other than Somalia and Kenya. There are other people who are interested, other countries, private sector governments and such, who are interested. A win for Somalia would be a win for them. A win for Kenya would be a win for... So we're there. So I think... and I'd want to quote one of the lawyers and professors who was weighing in this conversation, saying these two countries now, the leaders of these two countries need to go the amicable way, the way we solve our disputes traditionally. Tunaita kikao, wazee wa kijiji wanazungumza. Because we're still neighbors. We're not going to wish away Somalia, and Somalia cannot wish away Kenya, so to speak. So this professor, the name actually slipped my mind, but they're saying that this is a high time that Somalia and Kenya had a conversation away from, public limelight, away from the courts and such, to get to, an amicable solution. Because remember, the North, now, even from the first story that we had on the drought situation, we had, the North remembers, we had Kenyans who are in the northern region actually, just walking into Somalia and Ethiopia because of the drought situation. So we cannot wish each other away. It's our leaders now to come together and get an amicable solution, which I think can be achieved. But
Regina, just weigh in briefly. I think the issue of Migingo, not even Migingo, the border dispute between Kenya, Uganda, and now with Somalia, let me just say that I think Kenya is a peaceful nation. we really don't like going the kind of, let me use the word thorax, to solve issues, because issues with borderline, nation to nation kind of relations, Migingo is, but there is a big nut. It's a very hard nut to crack. One point, fishermen from this lake going to the other side of the country and they get, arrested and all that. But we've always found a solution. Remember when the story has it that when former president, the late Idi Amin, tried to do something to push the boundary of Uganda to some part of Kenya, the president said, "Hey, usijaribu."
Boss,
relax. Oh yeah. Tulia.
And if you saw what Twitter, the conversation around Twitter, Kenyans were actually using President Uhuru Kenyatta's pics in military regalia and saying, we're not ceding ground.
Even an inch.
Yeah.
So you can bet. You're talking about thorax. Thorax kifua.
Yeah,
I think at some point, when push comes to shove, you shove and you shove hard.
But I think for us to get to that point, then something will have to give way. Exactly. But as a nation, with the kind of, the century we are in right now, the time, the number of people who actually form a bigger chunk of population, 75% according to 2019 census, the youth, between the age of 30, 18, 35, 40, kwenda hapo juu. So when you bring, God forbid, a war between two nations because of a border dispute, you can imagine how many people will suffer. It will take years to resolve such a dispute. You can imagine.
And then again, looking at the fact that we are gearing up for the general elections, and also there's been so much pressure on the president when it comes to his legacy, you see, and this is also one of those key things that people are now looking up at him, like heavy is now the head
that wears the crown.
Yes. So what move are you going to make? Are you going to accept this judgment, or are you going to fight to make sure that Kenyan territory, as per what you have said, not even an inch. We are not going to cede even an inch. So what's your next move? So you can imagine the kind of pressure that he is actually going to be experiencing. And given now that you're actually pitting KDF, or which is part of the AMISOM that is there, versus the KDF, of course, that is going to be deployed there together with the Navy to guard our territory. You can imagine how much pressure the president is actually under looking at this particular situation. So I don't think it's an something we can just easily brush off. Heavy is the head.
I think the two gentlemen, President Kenyatta, there is so much that is happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You know, we have got think tanks, we have got advisors, legal researchers, we have got diplomatic, point men sitting between the two gentlemen, just trying to bring that kind of sanity. We might not know what is happening behind the scenes, but trust you me, these two nations are well developed. What is happening between State House and the Federal Republic of Somalia, the two gentlemen, is just so much. We might not see them,
of course, play it out in public.
Exactly, in public, but a lot is happening. And I believe that President Kenyatta and Farmajo, he's been coming to State House mara mingi sana. He's a frequent visitor.
Doreen, as you conclude.
Yes, as I conclude.
Maliza ndio na mimi niko na kawimbo.
Before also, let me just say,
before tuende hiyo Dorina jump in na Regina tuimbia, we are being told to take a very quick breather to fikiria what decisions we'll make also to get into this particular piece. And we will be back to continue. Stay with us.
The Vulturine guinea fowl, an animal that has the head of a vulture, the colors of the most brilliant of species, and the tail of a peacock.
What I love most about the birds is their behavior, their calls, how the males attract the females. It's very fascinating. We are still studying the reason why anybody in the group can initiate movement and all the rest will follow.
This is Wildlife Warriors, and I'm Paula Kahungu.
Trying to comfort me! So I can do anything I want. I can have you.
Already thinking about killing me. Though I may have escaped this time, I can't escape forever.
Tell the commissioners to make an appeal and accuse Wang Zhen of abusing his power.
I just hope you can get married to Prince Cheng without any issues.
But you've got to be careful. Stay in the Empress's palace and don't go anywhere.
We've got the Empress Mother's support. Also, we'll just be moving some babies around. They're all...
Welcome back to the program. This is still Good Morning Kenya. We continue with our segment in the headlines, and just to pick up from that conversation concerning Kenya-Somalia Maritime Road, this is after the ICJ ruled in favor of Somalia, and we were having this conversation before we went on break, just trying to say what next for these two countries, going by the fact that there was also a lot of conversations from Kenya's online yesterday, and all this is just sort of mounting pressure to the president. We also know that at some point he really just wants to to make sure that he can be remembered for something. It's a very critical kind of situation. And what also we're trying to say is that could sorting this issue amicably, you know, sort of like as brothers, be the only way to go? We also know that in 2019, at some point, Kenya recalled its ambassador in Mogadishu. This is after accusing Somalia of auctioning of oil and gas blocks in the contested area. And just as Ray, you have told us that clearly there's a lot going on. There's a lot behind the scenes. And we know that this is also a very critical and a crucial area. So perhaps fighting could not be a solution. I mean, just going also by the ICJ judgment, clearly they've given it to Somalia, also just by demarcating some areas, which ones goes to Kenya, which ones go to Somalia. So perhaps sitting as brothers, kuongea tu ikitu might be the only solution that perhaps might be there. Because I mean, Kenya and Somalia, really, the two countries have come a long way. And like we're saying, we cannot wish away each other. We can't. It's just, it is what it is. So perhaps sorting it as brothers could be the only solution. Amicably, just discussing, having conversations, communication.
There's so many things in play, and we also need to look at the security situation, you know, for Kenya. Right, and I also think Kenya is going to be using its influence in the UN Security Council to get some few things done. You know, it's not the first time that we've had issues of insecurity emanating, you know, from the Al-Shabaab militia and such. We started way back in 1997, you know, with the bombing, the August bombing, you know, and over the years we have experienced all this, and Kenya has done everything in its capacity to ensure that it secures its people and its borders. So here we find ourselves at a crux between our neighbor and ourselves. I'm sure there's a lot, as Victor said, there's a lot that is happening. Technocrats, legal, everybody is working this particular case. But now on a lighter note, I know it's not a Thursday yet, where we say Thursday is a new Friday. Whenever because Jane has said, heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? And we are all looking up to what President Uhuru Kenyatta, as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, what he's going to say in this regard. You know, is this actually a threat? What steps are we likely to take? Two particular songs, and now my age will start to show on air, but hey, that has never been a problem. If you're familiar with Billy Ocean, there's a song that says, you know, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. You know? Then I know once in a while when people are having a good time, even here at KBC Channel 1 and the country, Sundowner and such, this is a song that is often played, Coward of the County by Kenny Rogers. So it goes, promise me, son, not to do the things I've done. Walk away from trouble if you can. Yeah? It wouldn't mean you're weak if you turn the other cheek. I hope you understand. So the son, after some years, this is advice from a father to a son who actually went to jail for doing the nasty and was trying to advise his son not to do the same. But he got married, he had a life, and someone took advantage of his wife. And they were laughing at him because they referred to him as a coward. Yella, actually. Of the county. If you read the lyrics. So he actually took a stand for the first time in his life and went against what his dad said. And he said, sometimes you have to fight to be a man. That's what is playing in my head when I look at the Kenya-Somalia border. And yeah, we will be knowing what the president has to say as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces and as far as this situation is concerned. But what we need to know is that, you know, we will remain peaceful. We are always peaceful and loving citizens. But at times when you're threat, when you're pushed to a corner, you're likely to act. And we have seen over the years, Kenya try to act and assert its authority within its borders. You know, for the sake of us, the citizens will be keenly watching what the next move is in regard to that particular ruling by the ICJ. Now, let me take you back to matters local. And for a parent, when a child goes missing, even for a few hours, you can't find them, you panic. So it's back to school, and a boda has been arrested over an incident where a pupil's bag and phone were found in the suspect's house. So a family is seeking answers after a 17-year-old girl who was found dead. That is the body of Cynthia Makoha, who was found floating in River Lusumu. She was a Form 4 student at Kibera Secondary School in Nairobi. Now, according to the Mumia Sub-County Police Commander Stephen Mwoni, the body was discovered by residents of East Wanga last Sunday. So this is what happens. According to the mother, the daughter left for mashinani, during the holidays and such, but never reached home as expected. So she called the sister. They informed the daughter has boarded a certain bus, headed to Mumias. She arrived there, she called, but something was amiss at some point when she could not get to talk to her the way she wanted. At some point, she calls and she hears her daughter wailing, crying, and the calls terminates abruptly. And that's the last time she communicated with her daughter. They did a follow-up, and apparently a boda rider picked her up, or rather her bag as well as her phone. Some few hours into the night, a message comes through to the mom saying that she's safe and that she'd be traveling home tomorrow, but he did not say where she was. Family is panicking. At the same time, her Facebook page is uploaded. A photo is uploaded on her Facebook page of a face of a man unknown to the family. Investigation. The sleuths do their investigation. The phone is traced back to the house of the suspect, and her bag, people's bag, is found there. So on Sunday, a relative called the family saying a body had been spotted floating in River Lusumu, and it turned out to be Cynthia's. So according to the Prem investigations, a villager claimed that it was not the first time that the suspect had been accused of abduction. The victims, he said, are always trafficked to a neighboring country. How safe are our children, especially during this, back to school situation? How safe are our children? They're traveling from home. You're expecting them in school. They're using public transport. Just how safe are our children? And are you your brother's keeper where children are concerned? If you saw someone dragging a child, would you want to know why they're dragging this child? Would you? Do we? Are we concerned? Jane, Doreen, Victor?
I hear of these cases and I shiver, man. Considering kids are growing and one day you will have to allow your child to have some sense of independence when they're going to school back and forth. I remember the first time I took myself home when I was in high school. I went to boarding school in class 7 and 8, but tulikuwa tunakujiwa na kudropiwa by my parents. But now in high school, that's when we started experiencing going to school alone and coming back home alone. And it was exciting for me as a kid back then. But then looking at the parents, now that I'm a parent, man, you think of all that is stacked against your child in their blissful ignorance, and you just leave it to God. You can't do much at some point. You're like, Mungu Baba, just hide my children under your wings, because man, there isn't anything I can do. And to hear of such stories, communicating through and through, only for the last communication you have to be telling you she's maybe some 13 kilometers from where she's supposed to alight, and then that's it. Then you get a phone call, you hear your child wailing in the background, then no communication whatsoever. Ah, man. Hey.
And then after that, after wailing in the background, the next story you hear is that
you hear there's a body floating. And once you hear that, unajuanga tu saa zingine, I don't know if this has ever happened to you guys, when you have lost a family member that is close, in one way or the other, you feel it or you know it before you're told. in some strange way. Intuition. I don't know if it's intuition or it's communication from God directly to just prepare you. This is something that has happened to me personally. Before you even get the knowledge of the actual passing of the individual that is so close to you, you get a premonition of sorts of the exact situation that you're going to find ahead. And I can imagine if when the mother heard that there's a body floating somewhere.
You know, the sad part, Jane, is that a post-mortem has revealed that the pupil was defiled, then strangled.
Like, why? Why would you do all that?
And let me just tie that to this particular story here before we get to the Star Vic. This is a story that I had just briefly mentioned here. It's on page 8, where rogue police top list of contract killers. And this, not just rogue police, we also have core criminals and hitmen, corrupt law enforcers, and hardcore criminals are reported to be the most dangerous assassins in Kenya. And this is as per a report that was dubbed Targeted Killings in Eastern and Southern Africa that was done by the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crimes. And as per this report, the National Police spokesperson dismissed this report, saying it's inaccurate, it's erroneous, because they don't have data to support any of these claims, especially when it comes to extrajudicial killings. But by virtue of seeing something like this happen when children are coming home from school, doesn't it even scare the police service to just even want to do more, as opposed to being at the forefront to dismissing a report that was done by a global entity? My 2 cents.
Yeah. I think they say that the first rule is deny, deny, deny. Whether you're caught red-handed.
Oh yeah. Actually, that's the 11th commandment. Thou shalt never get caught. As put by Jeffrey Archer.
And when you're caught?
Not me.
And when you get caught?
Thou shalt never get caught. And when you're caught, deny, deny, deny. The 11th commandment. Actually, that's a book. Those people who enjoy reading a good book, Jeffrey Archer, anytime.
Vic.
All right. Quick look at what's happening here in the newspaper. We've talked about the story of UN top court favors Somalia in Indian Ocean border dispute, and of course, court says that it would be inappropriate to delimit a boundary based on median line. The court said that the 14-judge bench, that is panel, instead drew a new line that has split the disputed area into two, saying that the best solution is an equitable solution. So that is as far as that is concerned. Talk of Raila's promise cabinet slots for youth if voted. A quick look at that. He said that if he's elected, he will include for youth. He promises that was made on Tuesday, that's yesterday, in a bid to charm the youth ahead of next year's general election. Raila, who has escalated his 2022 presidential campaign, said that his government will also reserve more appointments for the youth. And that is his promise. He asked the youth people to be part of his journey by campaigning for him. Okay. To other stories. Embrace diversity. Uhuru tells world leaders in New York City. President Uhuru Kenyatta has told the world leaders to end the silo mentality that has seen some states, largely in Africa, excluded from key decisions affecting the globe. He castigated the use of one-size-fits-all prescriptions and templates by powerful global institutions in dealing with Africa's challenges. That is President talking there. Regina talked of the issue of nicknames to appear on ballot if bill passes. That bill is the Senate has published the Election Amendment Bill 2021, which allows the Electoral Commission to include a candidate's popular name on the ballot. We have a couple of them. We have Baba, we have got Hasla, Weta. We have got Madividi, we have got Manistivo, and all that. So even Babuino, his real name is not Babuino, not Babu. you know, he has real name, and most of these, you know, politicians out there. But they will have to wait until that bill is passed. All right. So DPP has new evidence in Obado's new graft case. Mugambi has allowed the defense 1 day to go through the evidence. The court had that the prosecution intends to produce 500 new pieces of documentary evidence to prove their case against the governor and his co-accused. So 500, State Counsel Eva Kanyuria said that, told the anti-corruption court that 500 new additional documents were inadvertently not supplied to the defense. Quickly, I want to bring to your attention something here, ladies. This is Matter Sports. But before then, Nick Mwendwa said that, that is the FKF president, said that not even Mourinho, not even Mikel Arteta can save Harambee Stars. He was speaking in one of the television stations here in the country, and said that the only thing that is now needed is for new and fresh talent. Not even the intervention of Arsenal's Mikel Arteta or AS Roma's Jose Mourinho can salvage Harambee Stars from the jaws of defeat. FKF President Nick Mwendwa has admitted. Okay.
I agree with his statement.
Need fresh talent.
I agree. No, Victor, I agree. Mikel Arteta of Arsenal cannot even save. If he cannot save Arsenal,
even Mourinho,
you know, from losses left, right, and center, how can he help our Harambee Stars? Correct.
Not that direction, Gina. Not that direction.
I agree. Nick, for the first, I'm actually agreeing with Nick Mwendwa on that aspect. Mikel Arteta cannot.
Perspectives are different.
Yes, cannot help Harambee Stars. If he cannot help his own team, how would he be helping our team?
But what's that issue of fresh talent all the time?
So in this case, the players are the problem.
We always need something fresh.
But when have you ever
heard
the politics within FKF? And I'd want to challenge Victor. When last did you hear that they are doing a recruitment of fresh talent to join Harambee Stars? Have you?
Actually, across the country, there's so many talent academies across the country. But then now, implementation of, and you know, just supporting these young talents is now the issue here. When you go to national ball games, you'll be shocked that the kind of talent displayed out there is just amazing.
The local teams.
The local teams. And, you know, I don't understand how FKF, you know, we still recycle. You know, it's now forcing even some of the senior players to retire prematurely because of the embarrassment. And remember, they also have a name to keep outside there where they play for the professional football. So it's, yes, to Nick Mwendwa, something has to be done, man. Harambee Stars, man, tulichapa 5-0 huko.
See, ilikuwa 5 ama ni 6 jamani?
Tulichapa 5-0.
Oh, ni 5, yeah.
Yes, and then pia tukakuja tukafinywa moja nyumbani. So sad.
That's why we cannot even be held by Arsenal's coach there, Mikel Arteta.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so let me just speak a bit from that concern or issue, if I may mention. This in regards to youth getting jobs, tenders, if Raila Odinga is to be elected president come 2022. And this is a story, if I can say, conversation, talks that never miss. Anytime a politician is there on the ground speaking perhaps of even popularizing their bid. And maybe I can just read a bite from what he said while addressing Mount Kenya youths. He said, I believe strongly that we should make use of the energy of our youth who make up about 70% of our population. If you don't give them the education and skills, they become a curse, delinquents, drunkards, and criminals. But if empowered, they become a source of wealth. And Ray said something important when you were beginning, why has it become so much important to just go to the youths at this point in time? It always happens anytime there's an election, and this is why we keep saying all the time is that be informed, be knowledgeable, that even when you go to that ballot come 2022, you vote from an informed perspective as you make wise decisions. Away from that, coming to COVID-19 intertwined with Mashujaa Day, which is coming up next week on Wednesday. And this is just how the government is really trying to rush to hit that 5.8 million vaccine target. That is by Wednesday of 20th October. And also the government is just trying to do this all in a bid to ensure they hit that 10 million target by end of December, which is just about 2.5 months away. And they have laid out some strategies. So far, the state has vaccinated about 4.2 million Kenyans and is targeting to vaccinate 1.6 to just hit that 5.8 million mark by next week, Wednesday. So some of the things they've put in place is to ensure they rely on the 47 county governments to implement a sustained community mobilization by bringing the various cadres of leaders to sensitize the masses on the need to take the jab. Also, over 7.5 million doses of the 5 types of vaccine approved for Kenya have already been distributed to various places, various counties, and the various hospitals that are designated to vaccinate Kenyans. Just again, this article continues to highlight that Kenyans need to go out there and get vaccinated. Remember, if we want the state to fully reopen the country, it's going to be informed by the number of persons that are going to be vaccinated, at least also by end of December. So this is why they've put up in place different ways, different drafts of measures to try and ensure that all this target they want to reach, they get to reach that target by the time frames and timelines they've put in place there.
Doreen, as we come to a close, I'd want to read some of the feedback that we get on Twitter, and borrowing heavily on that conversation about, inclusion of the youth, that now the youth is the next niche, or rather frontier, for voters, for vote hunting, so to speak. So Churchill Amantha says, Ray Manyara, some in the meeting were not youth, is being simplistic. So you mean women or youth at the service at your church must strictly be attended by women or youth? I think, Churchill, you missed the point of that conversation. We were saying what constitutes the youth in as far as, the age bracket is concerned. Who is considered youth? Because a majority of time you'll see people who are aged 50 and above still claiming that they're within the youthful bracket. That's where I was coming from. I had no problem with the elderly or the old people attending this meeting. But the issue is what constitutes youth? And if it is a youth agenda, can we for the first time put our best foot forward and have the youth actually who constitute the ones who are unemployed, the ones who are employed entrepreneurs thinking about a better tomorrow? Because most often than not, the youth is promised milk and honey, so to speak, but it never materializes. So, my point was and still remains, the youth need to sit at the table in as far as policy making is concerned. That is the only way their agenda is going to be included. And the people who should be leading the youth agenda should be the youth, not because you have a youthful demeanor, as they say, youthful demeanor, or you have the youth at heart, because these are things that we've been told in so many forums that you see, hata kama mimi ninakaa mzee hivi, mimi bado ni kijana.
Those things of 21 to
mimi
forever.
bado ni kijana. Truth is, wewe si kijana, and this is a narrative that has been sold to the youth demographic as defined even by the Constitution, for so long. And that is where I was coming from. So if you kind of felt that it was simplistic, well, as we say, we are always open to feedback. Continue reaching out on Twitter. My Twitter handle is at Ray Manyara. We have Dorina Range. We have a Dorina Range Traffic Marshal A1, that is. We have a Jane Wamboi and at Victor Olo. The official station handle remains at KBC Channel 1 News. Watu wa Lower Lands, to you.
But also, before they come in, I want to say, actually I'm with you on that, Ray, because the way you're saying, when you have these forums for youth, why does the bigger chunk why is it that the bigger chunk is formed by those 50 and above? I mean, it doesn't say that we need not to have them. We can't have them. But also, let the young people form the bigger part of that kind of meeting? Because then again, how are you having a 60-year-old trying to push your agenda as a 30-year-old, as a 25-year-old, and then you tell me as a young person, I'm in the table, I'm in that space? It doesn't really add up, doesn't make sense. So they can still be there, but also let the young people form the bigger part, so that when you get to that office, you understand the issues of these young people, whatever they face. And if actually you're a legit leader, then you know how to tackle and assist the young people.
They need to shadow the youth, and when time comes, they hand over the reins. So the old cannot exist without the young, and the young cannot exist without the old. But it's a high time that we give, more responsibilities, more leadership opportunities to the youth. That's my take.
Basically just what Baba is saying, they are going by this article, only that it needs now to be actualized, because what you're saying is basically what he said. You're going to give more opportunities to the young people, empower them, give them skills, give them tenders, give them jobs. Hope is not just a talk. Maybe this time could be actualized to make it more real.
Anyone who missed that clip, KBC Channel 1 was there covering that particular event that was happening at one of the auditoriums at the University of Nairobi there. And so much was said from this particular youth, where one said, when you are making these appointments, cabinet secretaries, members of parliament, such and such, those ones are elected. But when you're making these appointments, so to speak, when you hear an 89-year-old man or woman is leading a certain docket, and you're wondering, okay, so at what point will I get an opportunity to head such a docket?
I think, Regina, just to weigh in as we close. Yesterday we had a discussion here with Wakili, and he said that in Kenya, election is divided in different categories. We have got people living with disabilities, we have the women, we have the youth, and so forth and so on. You know what happens? The fact is 70% of voters are the youth. And they're the people who will determine who's going to be the next president. Youth are loyal people. But if you sway them otherwise, you will miss that mark. People living with disability is also a very important group, and women. Women are also loyal. They will wake up early in the morning, go, line, vote, and come back. And by the way, according to research, according to women voters, once they decide and say they are going to vote for person A, it's so hard for you to drift them. That is how they vote. That is why when I say, "Oh mama, oh mama," you get it. They work with emotions, and once you can easily get the attention and the emotion of a woman, you've won. To the youth, I always say these three words: Victor, just begin. If you're a youth, just begin. Watakupata huko mbele.
Na hivyo ndio tunafunga ITH.
Yeah.
Abantu ba Mintombu Yamore.
Your favorite Ekegusi station, Minto FM, is now at your doorstep. Enjoy the hottest Kisi music, informative and entertaining shows, and reliable news only on Minto FM. Tune in to Minto FM on 91.7 FM in Nyamira, Kisii and its environs. Minto FM in Nyamira in Nyamira.
That we've come to this. If every day we are go fight, I think it's best that you forget me. Hide me in your arms, oh yeah. Protect me from my enemies.
That's why they've sacrificed grace and mercy. Nothing they can do to stop this music. Don't lose your culture. Don't lose your culture.
The Amazons.
explain to me why Vicente was so deeply in debt. If you refuse to tell me now, then the one I will need to ask about it is Victoriano.
He told me that if I prove to him that I love Connie, he'll think about it.
Go and keep that girl that you were kissing and just forget about me.
I don't understand why you ended up getting divorced. What happened there?
But don't give my daughter any trouble.
Deborah? What's that woman doing here?
She came back. Mommy came back home, Daddy.
Welcome back to the program. Before we get to our conversation of the day, a quick look on how the roads are looking like, and just perhaps if you might have missed our fast traffic link, this is actually why. This is what we are focusing on and why we are focusing on Ngong Road, and this is specifically that section that comprises of the third phase of Ngong Road. That is a section in between Dagoretti Corner to Karen. The first phase is from the Kenya National Library to Prestige Plaza. The second phase is from Prestige to Dagoretti, and the third phase is from Dagoretti Corner all the way to Karen. So this was a project commissioned by the president in 2017, particularly this third phase. So it only meant the project was supposed to be complete by 2019. That didn't happen because of some challenges here and there. So far, at least phase 1 and 2 is already complete and opened up to the public. The only part remaining when it comes to construction of phase 1 and 2 is the putting up of the non-motorized transport system, which is inclusive of pedestrian walkways as well as cyclist lanes, and also the footbridges, the 3 of them that have been designated at various areas. That is in between phase 1 and phase 2, particularly in between areas of the Kenya National Library up until Prestige Plaza. Some of these areas include Kenyatta Hospital as well as Coptic Hospital. And again, the major reasons as to why these 2 areas were designated for these footbridges to be installed is because it's one of those busy areas. Also next to hospitals, next to schools, this is one of the areas which they want to erect the footbridges. There's also the Kenya Science, again, one of those busy areas. So these are the only remaining parts of the construction along or around phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 3 is still coming along, as it was mentioned by the Kenyan Urban Roads Authorities in February that it was supposed to be complete in the next 4 months. So that only meant that that project was supposed to be done by June, but that didn't happen because again of some challenges, key among them being encroachment of traders on some of the areas where construction is still taking place. And when you look at this image, clearly shows you one of those areas. This is what we call, again, like I mentioned, the non-motorized transport system, inclusive of pedestrian walkways as well as cyclist lanes. So some of these traders had encroached in some of these parts. Just going by this image, at the farthest end of where you see the road, that is where some traders had encroached, so making it difficult for the construction to fully take place. Also, there was the relocation of water pipes as well as electric poles, which only meant they had to engage the services of Nairobi Water and Sewerage Company for proper relocation of water pipes, and also engage the services of Kenya Power for proper relocation of electric poles. So again, that also stalled the project a bit. Much as it was to be completed by June, so far they haven't quite put, again, a specific time per se as per when it will be fully complete, and this is the full dueling of the phase 3 of Ngong Road from Dagoretti to Karen. But what we know so far is that it, as of now, as it stands, the project is at 83% complete. In addition to this construction process, what also the state is trying to do is again try to ensure that they demarcate some specific areas whereby the bus rapid transit system is going to take shape. So it only meant when the construction process of this particular road was beginning, they didn't quite have that in mind. But because of trying to make sure they reduce the traffic flow completely on most of these major roads, they're also trying to ensure that they'll put in place proper ways in which, when the construction is complete, in which the bus rapid transit system, or if you may, the BRT, will take shape. Mostly like what we are seeing or spotting along Thika Superhighway, we are clearly seeing BRTs taking shape along that particular route, much as it is a highway, and all that to try and reduce the traffic flow along that route. So also the same will take place on this particular route. And again, in addition to just expansion or dueling of Ngong Road itself, and specifically phase 3 of this route, one of the other, or better still, some of the things that will also be in place once the construction is complete, they'll also put in place the traffic lights, traffic signals, proper drainage systems. These are just some of the things that will also be put in place once the construction process is complete of the dueling of Ngong Road. So again, it simply means that this is going to be one of those roads that will keenly be focusing on, at least up until the construction of this particular road is complete. And that means altogether, that is from phase 1 up until phase 3. Like I mentioned, at least phase 1 and 2 is complete. Just some small parts of that construction is what has still remained. So that means, again, until phase 3 is fully complete in terms of expansion, that is from a single to a dual carriage road, which is still slowly continuing to take shape, and also up until the various amenities mentioned by Kura, like I mentioned, the drainage systems, traffic lights, traffic signals, and also the 5-foot bridges, which will just occupy the phase 3. So the space in between Dagoretti to Karen will have an inclusive of 5-foot bridges. And again, this is to reduce on the number of death cases, because much of what we know so far, the recent roads to be constructed, especially expanded here in the country, have resulted to high number of death cases because of the lack of those footbridges. So again, up until that is complete, and also when they'll begin on that process of the bus rapid transit system. So clearly, it will still remain a key road of focus until all this construction process is complete, and try to see how all this will impact, affect, and reduce the traffic flow, specifically along Ngong Road.
Thank you, Doreen. Nakwambia ulianza hiyo traffic and you said Ngong Road like a true Luo woman. Ngong. Ngong. Thank you for that. We'll be sure to check in with you before we get to close the program. In case you are just joining us, Karibu tena sana. This is Good Morning Kenya. I am Jane Momboy. We want to get into the next part of the program, and this is Women at the Forefront. All about my girldoms, all about empowerment, all about encouraging you by bringing to you women that are doing phenomenal things in the different spaces, professionally speaking, and also looking at their personal lives. And with us today, we have Doctor, engineer. We have engineer Christine Kibet Kabon, who is a biomedical engineer working with Iten County Referral Hospital. Good morning.
Good morning, Jane.
Karibu sana, Good Morning Kenya.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for making time to be with us today. We appreciate the time.
Thanks too for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. So as I always say, kama una maswali, or you have comments, or you're just seeking clarification, we welcome you to talk with us. Use the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. Our official handle is at KBC Channel 1. My handle is at Jane Womboy. Now, we want to understand, getting to become a biomedical engineer, what it took for you. And this involves going way back, understanding where the journey even started. When we were all growing up, we all have dreams, ambitions. I want to be this, I want to be that. Was a biomedical engineer anywhere in the works for you? Did you even know what that was?
I actually didn't know, Jane.
Yes.
In fact, I remember when I grew up, I wanted to be a lawyer. But when I finished Form 4, I think I didn't manage to get to the law school direct. So I had to stay for some time, and then after that, this chance came now. I was given a letter from the Kenya Medical Training College for medical engineering, and then I didn't even know what it was. And then I had to consult. I consulted one of my cousins who had schooled in abroad, that is in India, and he told me this is one of the courses that were just recently introduced, and they only offer up to the diploma level in Kenya. and the rest will be offered abroad. So when I just heard about that, I said, this is what I'm going to take.
Yes.
So I just went immediately.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how was even the support from your parents looking at this career path that not so many people know about? You don't have any idea about it, but you have decided, this might lead me there. Let me take this. How was the support system around you at that time?
Actually, I can say I was just supported by my parents. Of course, they are not educated. But when I just said, Dad, Mom, this is what I'm going to take, they gave me maximum support.
And they supported all the way?
Yeah, all the way.
And looking at when you even, your time in school, were you able to interact with other female ladies, or rather ladies that are also doing the same course, or it was mostly a male-dominated course?
Yeah, it was male-dominated. I remember in my class we were only three ladies out of 21 in a class of 25. Yeah.
And was being a woman ever used against you looking at that time? You know, it's new, and there are more men than women taking up this course, just 3 of you. Did you ever face any form of discrimination or, you know, being spoken against just by virtue of being a woman?
I think not Jen. In fact, I remember when I was doing especially the mechanical part of it, you know, we do the metal work.
Yes.
We could cut the metals. That was most challenging a bit, but we could do even better than the male. Yeah.
And you know, whenever we have women and men pitted against each other, and especially looking at the numbers when one, you know, dominates the other, innately you find us, or rather, you know, moving to gender roles and saying, isi kazi ya wanawake, ini ya wanaume, isi ya wanaume, ini ya wanawake. Looking at your career so far, has gender roles ever interfered or been used against you whenever you are in your professional field of work?
I can say no, though sometimes, you know, now that we are few, you find that most opportunities are taken by the male, our male opponents. So what I can say, I haven't faced so much challenge. In fact, I get more favors.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know, one would look at this career and feel, this is more of the, you know, for the men, because it involves a lot of the STEM subjects under it. And then we have this narrative where we find so many, when it comes to STEM related courses, you find it is mostly men that are doing it. Why do you think this is so? Is it an attitude problem among the ladies, or an attitude problem among our fellow male counterparts that are discouraging us from taking up some of these STEM related courses?
I think it is the attitude that as ladies we have, because we can, in fact, anything that a man can do, in fact, a woman can do better. That is what I've realized. It is just the attitude. Yes.
And what can be done to just change this attitude? Is it a question of using an opportunity like this with a lady like you who has been there and you have seen the beautiful side of it, or also bringing, and rather how we can bring the male counterparts onto the table to help change the narrative, especially around STEM-related courses?
Yeah, I think that is it, Jen. Some of us that have gone to this male-dominated field, we can come out strongly, encourage our fellow ladies, and tell them we can do better.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I was just going through some of, you know, looking at your bio, you also have strong interest when it comes to women representation and empowerment of the women. Now, I want us to talk a bit about representation. You know, just earlier on with my colleagues, we were looking at the youth dividend and looking at the fact that we are so many, but yet we are underrepresented. And now bringing this conversation to women, is it a question of, we are also very many, but we are underrepresented? So is it a question that we are underrepresented because we don't have the opportunities, or we have the opportunities but we're not showing up to represent ourselves?
Your question is a two-way, Jen.
Yes.
I think before we were not being given opportunities. In fact, like for example, today I stand as I want to become the MP of my constituency. The male will still look at me like not yet ladies, you know. We are not given that opportunity. But we thank God for the 2/3 gender rule. That has really helped us. This opportunity that was given out to all the counties to have their own women rep, you know, it is great. But I think we need to be given opportunity just like men. Yeah.
And where do your interest, even in the political space, stem from?
Yeah, when I was posted in 2011, Jane, I was working in a remote hospital that is in my local village, and I really saw the many challenges that women and girls are going through. You know, I started writing proposals. I tried so many ways of how I could help the community, but I could not get the assistance. And then at some point I said, why not me? If given this opportunity, Jane, I can be able to bring change that I need, the change that these ladies and these women and girls deserve. Yes.
And what are some of those social economic challenges that you have been seeing, and especially looking at your hometown, where you have grown, where you have seen the problems, and even maybe to some extent experienced, and you don't want the younger girls who are there to find in their future? What are some of those issues that you feel you can help address as a woman?
Yeah, the first issue, Jen, is about the poverty levels. Most of our women are still living under the poverty levels, and you know, this is another era. You know, we need to at least uplift these women to help them at least economically, so that they can be able to provide for themselves. You know, we have seen girls, like in my village, I've seen so many girls get discouraged because of how these other these ladies are living, the lives that are living. So these challenges can only be you know, we can only help this through the right leadership. We can help maybe make these ladies to become economically stable. And in that way, at least we can help the many girls to come out. Yeah.
And how can even the family be used to be part of this change that you want to see among the girls? You know, starting from the household where you are with your mom, your dad, and as a young girl, how can that space be used to help mold you to become this different breed of women that we are hoping for the future? Okay. You know, a nation is built by small families. If we can help make these strong families strong, build these families in a strong way, Jane, we are building a whole nation. But I remember when I was a young girl. My dad was a farmer. My mom was a farmer too. You know, they never went to school, but they used to work very hard. We really missed anything in our lives. But if I see somebody, you know, Jane, who is starving, living below that poverty level, you know, I feel so bad, and I say, no, it is good to make this family strong, make them economically stable, so that we make our nation grow. Absolutely. But we're also living in a time where, in as much as we have progressed, technology, modernization, we are still an African country, and by virtue of that, culture remains something that has a very tight grip on us as a people. And you find some of the challenges that we are facing as women are tied to culture. How can we shake off some of these retrogressive cultures and carry on what is good to empower our women as well?
I think it is through empowerment, Jane. You know, like we can give these motivational talks to this society, and we can come out of that culture. You know, it is possible. I've been running a program of motivation in our area, in Elgeyo Marakwet, and I have seen it is just lack of knowledge. You know, if we can just empower these people with knowledge, we can come out of that culture and we can live a different life.
Absolutely. Is mentorship something that, you know, has played a role in your life, you know, looking at your career professionally speaking when it comes to the biomedical engineering part, and also given that you have a political interest, is there some form of mentorship that you have undergone, or you have a mentor who helps you along the journey?
I can say yes, I have some mentors, and at the same time, it is through God's grace. You know, like I haven't received that real mentorship, but I feel now that because I lacked that, I should actually be in the forefront of mentoring others. Yes.
And how can we, given that you haven't, you know, gotten the form of formal mentorship that you would have desired, how can we then charter a path to create more room for mentorship, and especially looking at the county levels?
Yeah, this is something that has become, it has always been in my heart, Jane, and I feel that it should even be exercised in the whole country. Like now, in our schools. Generally, we've experienced so many suicide cases in our schools, our young children committing suicide. And I feel the Ministry of Education should come up with such a program, a mentorship program that should go around all our schools, all our counties, so that we mentor others. You know, a special mentorship program in the Ministry of Education, so that we help others grow in a special way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I like that you've also mentioned just going around schools, and this now brings, looking at the pandemic, we all got to hear of the number of teenage pregnancies that was recorded, and this is just what was recorded. So you can imagine the many others that were not recorded.
Yeah.
And by virtue of that, so many girls are denied opportunity to go back to school. You know, what can be done to also just make sure, in as much as a girl becomes a mother at a young age, they're not denied the opportunity to go back and pursue their educational goals?
It is all leaders, Jen, to come out strongly, advise the parents to release their children back to school. Let the mothers hold the babies. You know, it is possible. Give that child another chance, so that she gets her dreams. You know, during that pandemic period, I remember I had to use my resources together with some other leaders. We could go around and then talk to our girls, talk to our boys. In fact, we utilized that period specifically for mentorship. And I thank God so much that the results were good. In Elgeyo Marakwet, we never experienced so many teenage pregnancies, though they were there. We cannot say they were not there. But I'm just appealing to the parents to give them another chance. Let them go back to school.
And for those that, you know, do not have the grace or don't get this, you know, grace from the parents, some are even actually excommunicated, kicked away from the home, go with your child, you know, you are a disgrace to a family. How can they also be taken care of to just make sure that they have a soft landing out there?
I think the administration can be used, like the chiefs, you know. The chiefs can intervene in every sub-location, in every location, because they are the ones that knows every households. And also, that is in my plan. When I'm given an opportunity in 2022, Jen, I was planning, if possible, by God's grace, I'll set up a school specifically for these girls, you know, that have children. You know, they get stigmatized when they go to those other schools. Wanaona kama ni mama, and then if they get their own special school, these girls can get another chance.
They can thrive. And that also takes us to the whole space of the perpetrator, because what was also reported is that most of the cases, when it comes to sexual violence or defilement, the perpetrator was someone who was familiar to these girls. Could be a father, an uncle, a cousin, a brother, for that matter, stepfather. And you find in some of these cases, the families prefer to sort this out of court. They don't want to go the legal way to take action, because italeta aibu kwa familia, or atutake maneno mengi, consequently denying this girl justice. What do you make of such situations?
I think in that situation, Jen, it's very unfortunate, and I think the best way to go is to use those local administrators and as ladies to unite. If such case appear, we should not atisema aibu. Let that man face the consequences, because if we continue, maybe allowing that, the case will still continue.
But that's something that we have been seeing over and over and over again. Now, also let's talk a bit about economic empowerment, which is something you had touched on a bit earlier, and more so looking at women. You find that we're living in a time there's so many single-parent households, and in most cases it is the mother that is present in that single-parent household. Therefore, you find there's a lot of economic challenges that these ladies get to face. Looking at this particular lot, you know, you have to take care of your children, you have to look for a source of income, you don't have someone to live your children with. How can we create an environment that can accommodate all these groups of women to make sure that we're all thriving together?
Jen, in the Affirmative Action Fund, I think there is that provision that these women can qualify for that fund, and we always encourage them to form groups. And when they form groups, they will write proposals, and in that way, they can be economically empowered. Through that small source of money, they can start their businesses, they can do their farming, and life can be good to them.
Absolutely. Remember, this is Women at the Forefront. This is all about encouraging our women out there, looking at the struggles that we get to experience on a daily, from time immemorial. These are some of the issues that have been there since, and we're here to just try and create solutions to this moving forward, to just make sure that our daughters, the next breed of young women, do not have to experience the same issues that we are going through. And we welcome you to talk with us. Use the hashtag Good Morning Kenya. That is what we're using on Twitter. At KBC Channel 1 is the official station handle, and my handle is at Jane Wamboi. Now, looking at even the fact that you are a mother, a wife, you are an employee, you are all these many hats. How do you just strike a balance to ensure that one part of your life is not suffering on the basis of this other part, because you have to show up in all of them?
Of course, Jane, I think we have been given grace by God. As women, we can multitask and we can balance each and every part. Like, I make sure that at the workplace, I'm doing my best. I can also take care of my family well. And in politics, I also find time to do politics. So that ability to multitask, I can tell you, Jane, I'm doing great, and I have not left anything behind. Yes.
Speaking of politics, we have had so many women come out to say that, when I expressed my interest to run for this and this particular seat or office, people came to me, rather I received a lot of criticism because, one, I'm not married, or I don't have children. So people look at you, or rather look down on you, and don't see the potential in you. For those young women that are aspiring to go for political seats, but they're facing such backlash from the public, what would you tell them today?
I want to tell those ladies, get encouraged, focus on your that vision that you have. Those challenges are there. They will talk, they can say anything, but make sure that you focus on your journey. In fact, I know very well that there is no day that you can stand today and nobody will talk anything against you. So get encouraged, get ready to hear all those sorts of things.
Awesome. And also for our male counterparts, we cannot live without them in any space. How can they also be part of the encouragement, be part of the voice that encourages other women to come to the table? If you're not invited to the table, take the table away. So how can also men be part of this conversation?
I just want to tell the men, we cannot leave you behind. Of course, help us get empowered, because once we are empowered as ladies, the whole household is empowered and the whole nation is empowered.
Awesome. Tukimalizia, what would be your parting message to our viewers today, our young girls who are watching us, the youth who are such a huge part of the population that, politicians are waiting to just pounce on, promise, and make all these grand promises to?
Okay, I want to tell our youth.
And also your home county.
Yeah, of course. And let me just say something to all our youth in the country. We are nearing the electioneering period. Don't be used in any manner of bad way to throw stones to any other politician. Politics will come and go, but life will continue. Just do your politics in a good way, and God will always bless you. To my people of Elgeyo Marakwet, I'm just asking you and appealing in a humble way that give me this opportunity to become your women rep this time round. And I'm promising you the change you need, the change you deserve.
The change you need, the change you deserve. Thank you so much, Christine.
Thank you.
We have been speaking with Christine Kibet Kabon, who is a biomedical engineer working with Iten County Referral Hospital. Thank you so much for making time. We wish you the best in your future endeavors.
I'm very grateful for this opportunity. God bless you so much.
Bless you too. Thank you for making time.
I'm sure next time I'll come here as a women rep Elgeyo Marakwet County.
She has expressed it here on Good Morning Kenya.
Thank you.
Before we get to close the program, we have a quick look at Gongrud. Doreen.
I see what you did there, but I choose peace. All right, so before we just get to perhaps recap for you a bit on the progress of this one, let's quickly check the traffic flow along this route. This is Ngong Road, and we can begin from the city mortuary roundabout. Just very quickly how it is looking like. This is how the roundabout is. Heavy kind of traffic throughout this entire roundabout, but then again, it's quite expected. We've mentioned time and again, at least the better part of this week, is that this is what we expect to see on most of our roads here in Nairobi and even beyond, and that is simply because of the reopening of schools, which clearly would lead to heavy kind of traffic just because of a lot of activities and movements here and there. And not forgetting the fact that this is also one of those busy roundabouts. This is the city mortuary roundabout, busy because it gets to branch off to major roads as well as slip roads. Case in point, Ngong Road, which is our focus this morning, Valley Road, there's all the way coming from Kenyatta Hospital, as well as the sections of Langata Road via Mbagathi Way branching through, cutting via V Road, coming to the city center on that side of Uhuru Highway. So clearly one of those busy roads there. And on that lane, as you leave the estates, leaving the areas of Dagoretti, Karen, Ngong, coming to the city center, on that section, heavy kind of traffic just as you near the roundabout there. That is how it's looking like. In fact, that area around the Coptic Hospital, one of those areas where you'd really see heavy kind of traffic, and that is the case along this section, or better still along this lane. That is as you come to the city center. Now, when you just try to remember what I was telling you on our second traffic link, as the reason as to why it is important for these footbridges to be installed the minute they will begin on that process. This is around areas of Coptic, Kenyatta, as well as Kenya Science, actually just areas in between phase 1 and phase 2 of Ngong Road. This is also why, look at this, the heavy kind of traffic around the areas of Coptic Hospital. Now, this is actually how it works, or how it happens. Anytime you would spot heavy kind of traffic on such busy areas, simply because traffic police oftentimes have to stop vehicles for pedestrians to cross over from one side of the road to the other side, and also given the fact that it is one of those busy areas simply because it is around a hospital, so obviously just making it one of those busy areas. Now, the major reason as to why this footbridge becomes necessary to be installed around these areas is to reduce on that kind of heavy traffic, because it will simply mean, instead of traffic police having to stop vehicles here and there for pedestrians to cross over from one side to the other, then they'll just have to use footbridges, so thereby it ends up reducing on that traffic flow. So aside from just footbridges serving as the purpose of reducing on the number of death cases, it also serves as a good avenue for traffic reduction. And then again, and I mean, this is also why they will be installing that. So coming back, the traffic flow, that's just how it's looking like, not moving at all, at a standstill on some sections, moving at a very slow pace there, and that is specific to that lane that is leaving the estates as you head over to the city center, and also case in particular just around that section or around that area which I've just mentioned. On the other side, moving at least at a very swift pace around Prestige Plaza. Around Prestige Plaza, again, also heavy kind of traffic there. That is also expected. It's next to a mall, so clearly that will also be a good reason as to why we'd spot and see heavy kind of traffic there. Areas around Adams Arcade, again, heavy kind of traffic on that section. So if at all you're coming from these areas, estates are along Ngong Road on this particular section, then just on those areas that I've mentioned, you'll have to make do with that traffic there. And not so bad, at least on that lane that is leaving the estates, leaving city center, Mbagathi Way, Kenyatta, Valley Road, as you head over to areas around Ngong, at least on that particular lane, all through and through, moving at a very swift pace. So just as we finish up on the traffic link, at least this Wednesday, so this is why we're focusing on Ngong Road, just simply trying to look at the progress of phase 3. And like I mentioned, at least as of now, what we know is that it's about 83% complete in terms of construction. It's expected to shape how Ngong Road is going to be looking like altogether, as well as try to reduce the traffic flow along this route. Part of what will also be inclusive once the construction process is complete is obviously non-motorized transport system, inclusive of pedestrian walkways as well as cyclist lanes. In fact, those are just some of the projects that Kura is trying to finish up on. when it comes to the dueling of phase 3 of Ngong Road. In addition to that, it will also be inclusive of 5 footbridges. They haven't quite put specific areas, unlike phase 1 and 2, whereby we know the exact places where these footbridges will be installed. On this particular one, they haven't quite designated the various areas, but at least what we know is that it will have 5 footbridges just on that section, or the space in between Dagoretti Corner and Karen, which is actually the space that forms up phase 3 of Ngong Road. And also it will have traffic lights, traffic signals, and proper drainage system. All this in a bid to try and reduce the traffic flow along this route. I mean, over time, we've talked about the kind of millions that Kenyans get to lose just by being on traffic. So this is why the state is really trying to ensure that they recarpet, rehabilitate, expand, dual some of these roads to reduce on the traffic flow. And also, altogether, the bus rapid transit system, we have so far seen it taking shape along Thika Super Highway, coming along well. So also Ngong Road is one of those roads that has been earmarked for that BRT. So far, that's how it's looking like in terms of traffic this morning along Ngong Road. And also, those are the recent updates when it comes to how the entire space or face of Ngong Road is coming along in terms of that construction process.
Doreen, just last week, the government has been trying as much as possible to bring sanity on the road and what have you. But last week, I think I even posted one of the social media groups that we have around, where someone was knocked just right under the footbridge. And the government is erecting more of these footbridges along the major highways. I mean, and you know what the cop said? Quote unquote, this is a dead case. Because the person, okay, by bad luck, he passed on because the impact was so hard on him. You see, the whole essence of having a footbridge is to minimize accidents between the motorists and the pedestrians. Because those kind of footbridges are always erected during, at busy places, either markets, marketplaces, schools, or where there's huge crowd, so that there is that easy flow of traffic between the motorists and the pedestrians. But then that person was knocked right under the footbridge.
Right. And you see, actually, that was along Outer Ring Road.
Yeah.
And, Outer Ring Road is actually the latest in terms of, if I can mention, one of those major roads to be constructed here in Nairobi. And after its construction process, was complete, because right now what they're still trying to put is trying to ensure that all the various areas that they had designated for footbridges to be installed, in fact, there were 11 places. So far, they've done, I think, around 7 thereabouts, so remaining like about 4 therein in terms of footbridge installation. Before that was actually done, Outer Ring Road was the road in this country, entire Kenya, recording the highest number of death cases, simply because
because of the population around that area.
Exactly. Initially, the way in which the road was just a single road. So right now, they have really expanded it to a whole 8-lane road. And you can imagine having expanded the road to that kind of magnitude and not having footbridges. So clearly, it was recording high number of death cases. And this is why they actually began with those footbridge installation. Now, the problem is, Kenyans, I don't know if it's like, what will I say?
We love shortcuts.
We love shortcuts. And some will blame it on lack of proper sensitization. And you're thinking, there's a footbridge. Why don't you just go use that footbridge?
And by the way, it's so shocking to see mtu anavuka, tuseme for example, a lady or a mother na mtoto. Kwanza anashika mtoto, anaweka mbele yake, so that, as a decoy or as a barrier, so that as a motorist, ukiona mtoto, you'll have to slow down. Listen, when you're knocked right under the footbridge, there is no case there.
There's no
because
case.
You did not see a vehicle inakuja huko juu kwa footbridge to knock you huko juu. It's like you've trespassed.
And you see, that's the thing that most people don't know. If you are knocked by a car within 100 meters of a footbridge, actually the state has rights to sue you. As the victim and the victim's family, there's no recourse for you. There's no case there. You cannot lodge a complaint against the motorist or anything.
No.
As long as you're within 100 meters of a footbridge. And you unaiona, because that's the line of vision. The direct line of vision is estimated to be 100 meters of a footbridge. If you are within that range, you can be sued by the state
Before
for
or
misuse.
after?
Yes, misuse and abuse of public facilities.
And actually, they would even argue that you're putting the lives of other motorists in danger.
Yes.
Or you're trying to commit suicide, because why would you cross the road right under the footbridge, which is erected by the taxpayers' money? Because erecting a footbridge, we all know how long it took that one along Thika Road.
It takes
a long time,
takes a
because you have to
long
redesign
time.
the entire road. You have to block another section for you to erect that footbridge. So, guys,
The state has all the grounds to sue.
Exactly.
And sometimes
the funny
it's just ignorance.
Yeah, another funny bit is, I'm sure you guys have seen these pictures. Unaona mtu ako kwa barabara na mbuzi ama ng'ombe inapita hapo kwa footbridge.
Yes.
I'm sure you've come across some of those images.
Exactly.
Yeah, it happens.
Whether they're legit or altered, but that just goes to
It sends
show,
a message.
Yeah, like kama mbuzi inaweza fikiria kupanda huko juu.
Sasa wewe nini nakusumbua?
Yeah.
Sembuse binadamu when you're the top of the food chain, the hierarchy.
Use the footbridges.
But sometimes it's ignorance. You know, sometimes some Kenyans would say, si ananiona. You know?
Actually,
and you
that's what
imagine,
they use.
why would you say that? This is your life you actually put on the line.
Yeah. Alafu naona wengine wanatumianga hand signal, ati anafanyia hivi na anaangalia mali anaenda, lakini hand signal, tulia, slow down. You're doing 180, 90 at an express highway, and then from nowhere, mtu anapita, ai boss, no.
And the point they're doing that hand signal is actually next to a footbridge.
Yes.
So actually, Kenyans need to utilize, because the state has, used a lot of money for these footbridges, so they need to utilize and make use of them. Because just the way you're telling us, Wamboi, that we've seen obviously animals passing through, and you see also the traders, some of them encroach inside these footbridges because also Kenyans are not using them. So
Nanza kabiza hapo.
Exactly. Okay, we are slowly coming to a close, but let me just shout out here. There's a gentleman called Isaac Yule Moja. Kalundu, Kitui town, locked. Sema present from Kitui. Sema pleasant. Wycliffe Miller, live from Why not Junior Academy, Mau Mau Road. Why not? It's one word. Why not Junior Academy? Anthony Kariuki Warui, Karuki Electronics, and hey boss, tuma invoice. Kariuki Electronics and electrical shop, Matanya stage we are watching. All right, thank you so much for tuning in. Watching Kiganjo Nyeri, a very busy place there. Ruth Karani watching from Chokar. Mithamo Wandungu watching from Kangundo Kirinyaga. Okay. Nyakwardani, granddaughter or grandson to Shosho. That's what it means, Nyakwardani. Bondo, good morning. Yeah, okay. Bondo is watching. They call Bondo State House. I don't know why they call it State House. Okay, you know. There's a gentleman called Manoa Kibor. Kapnasu was in Gishu County, Iko locked. Nakuru, that is Lele, Kiplangat, Elisha Chirchir watching from Kamarich, Nandi County. Thank you so much. Gilbert Ngetich watching you live from Kenyatta Barracks, Kutoka. Susiana Transmarak. Call me Ngetich Gilbert. Yani jinaki ko Facebook, bada amesema call me. Yeah, in
case you missed it.
Yes, I think this guy must be a soldier. So we followed orders, sir. Right? We're doing so.
We're here for service.
Benson Mumo watching live, and a guy from Ongwaru Massive. This is not a guy. Rehema Hassan. Thank you, Rehema. Ladies, I have something for you here. There's a story here. There's a story here on the back page of the Star newspaper, and I think it's quite, emotive and something that people rarely talk about. When you talk about female athletes, some of them have come out clearly to talk about some of the issues they go through. It's called career hurdles. Menstruation and maternity are female athletes' worst nightmare. Have you ever thought of talking about this thing publicly? Even what they go through when they go for these international events, the marathon you want to do, 12, 24, or the marathon. So the story says here that female athletes have been urged to confide in someone whenever they are going through their periods during major championships and are unable to perform at peak levels. Now, former world 800 meters champion, that is Janeth Jepkosgei, said menstruation periods are a huge stumbling block to female athletes' careers, hence they should not suffer alone in silence. I know it's an emotive issue, but they've come out to speak. So that when you see them not performing, they'll say, sasa alikuwa nakimbia, sasa huyu, you know, with 10 kilometers to go, sasa you know, there's that feeling. And what I usually say that women are the most complicated creatures under the sun.
Really? Do we take it that nice way, or we complicate it?
No. In terms of the way you're created, one thing leads to another, and it can affect you in a very huge way.
So we take it nicely. That's complicated bit.
Exactly. You'll correct me in this. That most ladies, whenever they bring forth lives, some of them have that memory lapse. Is it true, Jen? Is it true that you just forget about yourself? You completely disappear in another world.
You know, bringing forth life comes with a lot of responsibilities, and especially looking at a creature that is helpless without you. Sometimes it is called upon you, and it is only you who can actually give a certain level of care to the child that no one else can. But be that as it may, I think we can all agree and we say there are challenges that are uniquely for women and uniquely for men. And there is no way that at some point there's some things I just can't help you as a man, and there are things that you can't help me as a woman.
Exactly.
Like weather change, like for example when they go for these marathons. Actually she even said that the former Olympic Games 800-meter medalist said that menstruation periods are especially tough for young female athletes who, due to their inexperience on a global stage, may elect to drop out of competitions altogether.
Or even pregnancy.
I'm just trying to imagine, like, on a normal time, you know, just the average kind of woman during that menstrual time or menstrual period, the kind of, and you see for different women it's actually it manifests differently. There are some that it's actually very painful. They even have to be injected just to cool off the pain. So you can imagine you're here, you know, somewhere outside the country, try to represent the country, and this is you at that point in time, and you see it's something, it's natural. There's nothing you can really do about it.
No, you can't.
There's nothing you can do about it, because it's just a question of trying to understand. You know, sometimes, and you see you mentioned that sometimes we actually judge and say, sasa huyu alikuwa anafanya nini huko Boston? You don't even know what was happening to this person, you know, mentally, emotionally, body-wise, physically. So I think it's actually something good to try and understand that at some point, there could be something beyond even them not performing well.
So, there you have it. So let's appreciate them whenever they go out there to represent the country. And, you know, people have got different issues. Like some of them come from maternity, they still push hard, they still go out of their way. The weather change, the climate, you know, the jet lags, diet, the temp, everything around these places really affect them. Okay, on that note, we say thank you so much for joining us from 6:30. It's almost 10.
Yes.
Yeah.
And here we are.
My name is Victor Lowe. Thank you so much for watching, for the feedback. We do appreciate. Tomorrow is another day. Remember, just begin. Just begin.
I'm Doreen Arange. Till we meet tomorrow. Have a beautiful Wednesday morning.
Kupata sikiza tune hii ya heshima, bonyeza *811 *817 hash.
Ukiwa mtu wa heshima utaheshimiwa. Ukiwa mtu wa kupeana nawe utapewa. Ukiwa wewe ni wa kudharau wengine